Okay, we're ready. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the November Curriculum and Instruction meeting. Sorry for the delay, but we had to wait until we had a quorum present in order to begin, and people just came from the polls they were voting, so we certainly want to be thankful that our board members do those kinds of things, so that's why we're a little late in getting started. So thank you very much for your patience. Okay, we can then begin. Mary Jo, has the meeting been posted?
Yes, it has.
Okay, thank you. Are there any citizens in the audience that would like to address the board this evening? Anyone that would like to say something? You don't have to sign up prior to the beginning of the board meeting, so if you'd like to come forward, please do. Okay, guess there's no one that has anything to address to the board. Okay, could we please have approval of the minutes from the September 30th, 2014 CNI committee meeting?
I move approval.
Okay. Second by Bill Baumgart. Are there any corrections or discussion? All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, this evening we have a Bright Lights, which is dual language, and we're really excited to hear about that. And then we have 4 action items and 3 presentation items before us. Looks like we've got a pretty heavy agenda this evening, but I'd like to begin, first of all, just by saying a very special thanks to Mary Jo King for the phenomenal job that she did in putting together all of the field trip requests for 2014, 2015. It was just an absolutely outstanding job, what you did. It made it very easy, although it was a lot of work to read for board members, but it was organized very well. So thank you, Mary Jo.
Can I?
Yes.
And I also want to thank the Waukesha Education Foundation and all the board members and volunteers for a wonderful event. And congratulate Dave DeReamer and our own Dan Warren and others, obviously, for the awards. But for anybody who didn't make it, the Waukesha South Orchestra is phenomenal. And that drum line,
Fabulous.
oh, that was
It was
fabulous.
fabulous.
Yeah, but
It
that's it.
was. Right, and I would just add very quickly that the projects that the students and the teachers had on display were just outstanding, very, very creative things are going on in our school, thanks to the Waukesha Education Foundation for funding them. So it was an exciting afternoon. Okay, Bright Lights, would you like to introduce our Bright Lights?
Yeah, good evening, and thanks for coming in, everybody. Before we begin our Bright Lights, I know we have a number of guests in the audience tonight, almost many of which will be presenting or saying something tonight, so just a reminder to, as we're doing that tonight, to make sure you push the microphone on and get a chance to, so we can hear what you're saying, and so can our viewers at home or on the web. But at this time, Dee Garcia and Jamie Martinson are going to come up and give a quick introduction of dual language and our program, as well as introduce a team that's here to present and share some of the great things that are happening throughout the school district of Waukesha.
Good evening.
How are y'all doing? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
There we go. I'm sorry. All right. Well, thank you so much for having us. We're hoping tonight that we're going to be able to have a conversation with you about some of the more creative things that are happening in the school district of Waukesha, thanks to your leadership in the past 5-8 years or so. Tonight we will be promoting once again dual language through Bright Lights. We last saw you in May where we presented our 6th and 7th grade dual language expansion for the first time in 40 years of this program. Our middle school students are now seeing a multilingual, multicultural global education. Tonight we have a real treat for you. We'll spend approximately 6 or 7 minutes kind of previewing the program through a YouTube video I've created for you. And then I'll introduce you to some of the voices of our families. Yes?
One quick point of order.
Yes.
Mary Jo, the posting,
Right online.
okay, it's wrong, so this wasn't given,
It's right online, so
okay,
in your packets, it was wrong.
okay, excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for noticing that, Ms. McCaffrey. Sorry about that.
No problem. Thanks, Pat.
We have to be sure that we're legal.
Sure. All good. Okay. So we will share a brief overview with you. We're hoping that the overview will support some of the documents you have in your board packet this evening, and how our program has grown to 4 elementary schools and 3 middle schools. We will feature the voices of our dual language parents here from the School District of Waukesha, as well as some of our open enrollment students and parents who have carefully selected our district for their child's education. So I want to thank Jamie Martinson for the very hard work she does in developing the curriculum from K to 7th grade dual language, as well as our parents and our students for spending the time tonight to come and bring their aspirations of this program to you. So without further ado, I'd like to ask Mary Jo to please start the video. Can you see that committee's missing an E? I apologize. I guess there's no sound. That's right. You can infer what's being said.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just gonna Google and make sure, but yeah, it is. Oh, well, it's the English way. In England, they use S instead of Z. Yeah, we use Z. Oh, well.
Gather in this room tonight to create a vision that we articulate together with students, parents, teachers, and our community to make this headline a Good evening and welcome to the School District of Waukesha Bright Light C&I Committee Meeting, November 2014, featuring dual language. This evening will feature a brief presentation and a parent and student question and answer session. Our goal as educators in the School District of Waukesha is to educate for competency.
Yep.
In the 21st century, multilingualism will be essential to the global competency of our students. Students today are far more connected to the world than they have been at any other time in history. And we have committed ourselves as an organization to nurture lifelong learners who will thrive in the local and global economy. In addition, our dual language program plays a key role in eliminating the achievement gap for traditionally underserved students. Dual language provides the pathways for learners to study language and culture, to collaborate and think critically, and to use their expanded worldview to communicate effectively. These skills will build a strong foundation for success and contribute greatly to the vitality of our future. We gather in this room tonight to create a vision that we articulate together with students, parents, teachers, and our community to make this headline a reality. The School District of Waukesha Dual Language Immersion Program is a unique pathway for students and is the only regional opportunity for multilingual global learning at the kindergarten to 8th grade level outside of the city of Milwaukee. The School District of Waukesha Dual Language Program is an innovative pathway for bilingualism and biliteracy, career and college preparation through accelerated access to advanced placement, and will offer School District of Waukesha and open enrollment students the opportunity to earn state seals and awards for their long-term effort, commitment, participation, and above all, achievement in 2 languages. The School District of Waukesha Dual Language Program is a research-based model for academic achievement known as 90-10. Students start kindergarten immersed 90% of their learning time in Spanish and 10% of their learning time in English. By 4th grade, the English and Spanish share equal amounts of learning time. In the middle school grades, all dual language students access dual language arts and a content area taught in the non-English language. This 90-10 model has been measured for its effectiveness across the nation when compared to other programs. Locate the broken blue line. This broken blue line represents the average of all learners. Locate the dark blue line. This blue line represents the trajectory of academic growth and achievement as represented by dual language two-way students. The pink line represents the academic trajectory of achievement for students in our one-way dual language program. The yellow line represents the academic achievement for students who have access to some form of bilingual education beyond the 3rd grade and not exceeding the 5th grade. The blue line represents students who have access to bilingual education between kindergarten and 3rd grade, but not beyond the 3rd grade. The purple line represents the students who are receiving English-only instruction with ESL support in the classroom. The red line represents students who are being pulled out of their classroom to receive English as a second language in another area. As you can see, dual language two-way and dual language one-way are the best program designs to ensure student achievement. I have placed a sun on the dual language two-way line as one of our middle school dual language cohorts last year exceeded the mean of all 6th graders in the building as measured by the MAP literacy data. Those students are now in 7th grade and all of them are or were English language learners. As we can see by this table, we expect that all of our students will meet the mean of all students by 8th grade. However, none of the subsequent programs where the non-English language is used temporarily, if at all, demonstrate that hope. To achieve these continued results, we will depend on our collective leadership for a K-12 pathway, excellent teaching practices, and exceptional learning opportunities for our students. There has been a world of enrollment growth set forth in motion by the development of our two-way programs. In 2010, we enrolled approximately 100 students in the dual language program, a number that has increased to 127, 152, and this fall, 172 kindergartners. Those numbers can easily be transposed as our first kindergarten students enter 6th grade next year. As you can see, with each additional year of increased kindergarten two-way dual language enrollment and demand, we will see a subsequent need to grow opportunities in grades 6 to 12. In 2014, 900 School District of Waukesha and open enrollment students took advantage of the innovative pathway of dual language learning given to them by this committee and this board. Your leadership allows students to benefit from long-term cognitive rewards of bilingualism, enhanced working memory, cognitive flexibility and approaches to learning, protection from brain aging symptoms, increased ability to focus, improved problem solving and analytic skill, self-fulfillment and relationships, increased academic performance and access to advanced placement, and increased lifetime income and employability. As we move forward tonight, we have brought to you members of the dual language student, teaching, and parent community who will share their vision for their children's pathways. We hope together we will graduate globally competent and concerned citizens who are able to make a significant local and global contribution and excel as future leaders here and in the international environment. Thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask Jamie Martinson to introduce our panel of dual language parents representing Banting and Bethesda Elementary School, as well as our staff member, Omar Massis, who has launched the dual language two-way program at Blair Elementary School this year. All of our parents and students have messages that they would like to communicate to you, as well as an openness to answer any of your questions or concerns going forward. So thank you very much for your time this evening.
All right, I'd like to introduce Mark and Caitlin Fortin. They are from Banting Elementary. We have Rosa Zibel and Diego from Banting. Bryn Schaefer from Bethesda. And then our teacher representative, Omar Massis from Blair.
Take a moment to address the C&I committee.
Sure, I'll go ahead. Hi, my name is Mark Fortin. I am a parent of Caitlin Fortin here, who is a 5th grader at Banting. We were part of the original pilot group that went into Banting the very first year. So she's actually this is her 6th year now and going into 6th grade. And really, we just want to say how wonderful the program has been for her. Kind of going into kindergarten, our story was we really didn't know where she was going to go. We were actually relocating at the time from Pewaukee to Waukesha. So we're kind of, do we want to live in Pewaukee? Do we want to live in Waukesha? Where would we be? We were renting at the time, looking at houses and kind of looking at schools and shopping around because that was a big influencer for us. And at the time, it was just kind of talking about it, the program. And Caitlin is a pretty advanced student. She's gifted and talented, usually scores exceptionally high on her tests. So we really were looking for something a little bit more. What are we going to do with this child? What are we going to do with her that she's going to go into kindergarten already reading quite a bit, and we were afraid she'd get bored. So one of the things that really attracted us, we were looking at Banting. We met with Cynthia Gannon, Marla Larson, who was the teacher the first year, as well as Jamie, and as they were kind of going through and looking at the study behind dual language. And so we kind of really took a leap of faith of what we wanted. We heard about the program. We didn't know a lot about it. Obviously every parent has concerns. This is my only child, so I've got one shot to make it right, there's no looking back and trying again. So, we really kind of took a look at that and what would be best for her and, kind of long term. And so what sold us on the program is just kind of some of the information that you sent, but we didn't have that data at that time. We just really had what Cynthia and Marla Larson and Jamie had told us at the time. So we made the decision to go forward with it. And we're in that first program. We couldn't be happier with our decision. I couldn't have imagined a different experience for Caitlin, just based on what we've gone through over the last 6 years. So really why we chose the program is really just what they showed us. Their enthusiasm was our initial, but kind of going through it, we wanted something that was more for her in her education than just being in kindergarten. Kind of, there would probably have been a sense of boredom for her, and we probably would have had to look at trying to get her more challenging. So this was an initial challenge for her right off the bat, really kept her motivated to learn, to be engaged, and to continue to be challenged every day instead of coming into kindergarten and, okay, I already know how to read this, I know how to do my math, so it really was great for her. It really wasn't, the other schools didn't compare once we heard about the program, some of the things that we've kind of seen over the years of her changing and things that I think that are different for her is probably her analytical and problem-solving skills. Really, she compares a lot of things between the languages, but not only that, as she's looking at science problems or reading things, just a sense of looking at things on two different ways, considering things, and I don't know that we would have that same thing because she started comparing things in English and Spanish. And as you saw from the program, it was 90% Spanish the first year. So right away, she was really immersed into the language. And she is a native English speaker, and her and my wife, my wife and myself, we don't speak any Spanish we don't, my wife took a little in high school, but, that fades in time if you don't, it was kind of a traditional. So neither of us had that dual language background. And so we really saw that. We also saw, friendships happen across different, so there's native Spanish speakers and native English speakers. So we saw friendships cultivate with people which you probably wouldn't have been able to interact with in a traditional English classroom. And what was great for not only her is that the teachers cultivated a culture where it was a community that was built. And as Rose is here and Diego, we know them very well. They came out at the same time. But everyone in that first couple of years that we followed along the path, we've become friends with the families, created a community, and met people from different backgrounds, different cultures. And I think it was a much more unique and tight-knit group of family and friends and students that were invested into the program than you may have seen in a regular environment, because we were all kind of in this together, giving each other our feedback and thoughts and working with teachers. Speaking kind of from my own profession, I'm a talent recruitment manager at GE Healthcare here in town. So I really see the importance of this. It is a competitive world out there. Not only that, it's a diverse workforce, diverse customer force. So companies right now are trying to really invest a lot of money in diversity, not only diversity as if you may see different races or different socioeconomical backgrounds, but diverse experience. So if we look at that, we are always looking at to diversify our workforce, and by doing that, we strengthen our workforce because we're mirroring our customers, we're mirroring what's going on out there in the world, and if we just kind of have a real homogeneous workforce, we're not going to be a successful company. And so I see that day to day, every day, and the amount of money that we try to invest in getting people that have a dual language background or some kind of diverse background, and like I said, diverse in just a learning background, that can work for a global organization. This program is really going to help out these folks. You know, Diego, Caitlin, the other children that are going to have a leg up on everybody else. You know, they're already going to come out, you know, very successful, hopefully. But on top of that, they're going to have this dual language experience and be able to speak 2 languages. And really, it's been great for our entire family. You know, we just feel like it's been a great educational experience, something I would have never imagined from the school district of Waukesha. You just didn't know what we were getting into, and it's been wonderful all the way through. You know, and then also, you know, as she's going forward into 5th and 6th grade, I hope that she gets continued opportunities to advance and to be challenged. You know, as we look at this, we just kind of don't want it to die out. You know, we've had so much invested in this, you know, time-wise, emotionally, you know, as well as just, you know, we've made such great friends and progress. We really want it to continue on as much as possible. So she's challenged, so she doesn't get to high school and all of a sudden, you know, there's nothing there to support her, you know, support the kids that have been in the program. I really think that it's important. And then I think it's something that the school district of Waukesha can really hang their hat on as this program continues to mature. This is a place when I talk to people at work or talk to people from other states when I'm traveling, I tell them about this program. They think is this a private school, a special school? You know, how do you get into this? You know, they're amazed at what's offered here. And I think it's just really something that we can really be proud of for the school district. And it's something that where people are going to want to be here more and more. And school choice, and you know, people are going to be fighting for spots. And I just think as we see the success of that, it really is going to be a model for other schools. And I don't know if they're already feeling this, but people may be copying the model moving forward. So it's really something that, you know, we can, you know, showcase for other schools and other school districts, I think. You know, and I just think it's been, you know, going forward, I'd really love to see her continue on high school and college, maybe do study abroad, and then, you know, maybe move into some kind of, you know, job where she's happy and she has maybe a global exposure where she's using this. I mean, there's really a lot of emerging markets in Central and South America for companies. And, you know, I think that's an opportunity that she will have, whatever she does, to do that, as well as here, you know, domestically, you know, Spanish language speakers are really a fast-growing population. And anybody who has that dual language is going to kind of have a foot up in the job market right now. So that's kind of my dreams and thoughts of it. You know, I kind of was looking at that chart, and one of our big concerns, you know, kind of going in was what's going to happen to her English language skills. And I've heard that from a lot of people, you know, is she going to kind of, you know, plateau on those English language skills? And it hasn't been the case. It's been actually the opposite. Right now, Caitlin is reading at a 11th grade level, and she's in 5th grade. I mean, obviously, it's a little bit of an exception, but it continued to kind of skyrocket. That English, you know, Spanish was going up, and English continued to go up because she's using the troubleshooting skills that she has from learning both languages and applying them across both. So, you know, obviously her case is a little bit unique, but, you know, she's done amazing in English and math, and all of these things have been great. And Spanish continues to do very well, and I think it's been a great program. So I didn't know if anybody had any questions for myself or Caitlin specifically.
Are you speaking Spanish now? Mr. Horton, are you speaking Spanish now?
Oh, do I speak Spanish? No, but as they were all talking in Spanish, Rosa and, you know, and Jamie and them, they were asking, I can pick up what they're saying and I could understand what they were saying. I don't speak Spanish well, but I can understand it now a lot more than I could before, by just kind of looking and hearing what she does. So, yeah. I think my wife's come along a lot better than I had. She had a little bit of a background in Spanish, but I really myself I can't speak Spanish.
Well, thank you for your very positive remarks
Sure.
about our school district, because those of us on the board know what a wonderful school district this is, and thank you for reminding us.
Yeah, I mean, it was really a leap of faith that we took, and we couldn't be happier. Sometimes you got to go into things, and people are telling you things. There was really not a ton of data for this district, you know, so it's been great.
Mr. Baumgart?
A couple things. One is maybe we ought to create a marketing department. We could look at bringing you in. But some of the things that you've said are exactly the way, and we knew well, the committee was different a few years ago, but we knew that this was one of those things you try, and you always worry a little bit about, is it the right thing to do or not? I've been on this board in my 20th year, and we've tried many things, and fortunately, most of them have worked out.
That's right.
In fact, I'm trying to find one that right now that didn't, but we won't talk about it. But I appreciate what you said about the fact that, you know, that you went into something that was new to you and actually new to us. But knowing Cynthia and knowing Marla, I was pretty confident that we were going with a good thing. Caitlin, I visited your class when you were in kindergarten, and I visited when you were in first grade, and I saw a huge difference. I don't remember you specifically, but I saw a huge difference from one September to the next September back 4 years ago or whenever that was. And you tell us what you think about the program.
In Spanish
No.
and English.
In English.
I think that the dual language program is really an exciting opportunity because, I mean, I've been doing this for such a long time. Spanish has become a second nature to me. I can just speak Spanish if someone asks me a question in Spanish, but I'm talking to someone else in English. So.
Great. Thank you.
Caitlin, do you
Here-
think in Spanish?
Pardon?
I'm wondering if she thinks in Spanish.
I don't really think in Spanish.
Because some kids have told me that they think in Spanish.
Are we going to hear from the other family?
Yes, we are.
I can wait. I'll ask later. You
Okay,
go
let's move on then.
Hi, my name is Rosa Sibel. I live in Pewaukee. My son is Diego, and we decided to apply for the out of district for the program, the dual program in Waukesha. I'm from Spain, like I assume everybody assume I got a thick accent. I moved from Spain 13 years ago, and I wasn't able to speak any English at that time. So the school district, the district in the United States didn't transfer the credits from the Spain. So I started to go to school to take English as a second language first, and then I did all my way down through the nursing program. So I did CNA, LPN, an associate in nursing, and a bachelor in nursing. Now I'm working in research with the medical college, and I'm still working as a nurse with an EDS population in Waukesha, which means I usually speak Spanish on the regular basis. When my son was born, Diego, I married with an American person who doesn't speak a single word of Spanish. So also he got two kids from his previous marriage. So when we got our first kid together, it was a kind of conflicted situation because all the education for the previous two kids was in Pewaukee School District, and here I was pushing towards the idea that my kid has to be Spanish speaking and also dual speaking if it was possible, but mostly Spanish. In my mind, it was no a question about English, but it was about Spanish. So he was the one that took a leap of faith on me, and he said, yeah, whatever, go forward, choose whatever you decide. And it was a kind of blind target at the very beginning, because when we were talking and asking everybody was sending us to Milwaukee, to the dual programs, or the programs that got immersion in Spanish language in Milwaukee. And it was a kind of disappointment to us to be thinking it has to move in him or transporting him every day to Milwaukee. And finally, somebody talked to us about the dual program, and it was Mr. Macias, because at that time Diego was enrolled in Blair School. So we decided to pursue it, and since that moment, for us, it has been a fantastic support. In my home, the first language of my husband is English, because he doesn't speak or understand anything in Spanish other than cerveza and sí and no. and in my work is only Spanish, because I feel kind of weird talking with my kids in another language, which is not my first language, English. I obviously have to think before I speak in English, and I don't have to do it in Spanish. So it's a natural way for me to speak with them. And I really think my son's first language was Spanish, and still today he's totally bilingual, and he can read, speak, and write equally perfect in both languages. And I really think he flips both languages without hesitate a second. So his ability to speak with my husband or with me in both languages is amazing, because for me, English always will be my second language. For my husband, Spanish will be always a second language, but for him, it's in a way that both languages are equally natural, without an accent in English or in Spanish. And you can try. He's Diego. Do you want to talk? ¿Quieres hablar?
¿De qué?
No sé. Okay, toma. Diles por qué te gusta el programa dual.
¿En español?
En inglés.
I like the dual language program because when I am older, I want to be a doctor. And I think it will help me get that job easily.
¿Qué? How do you speak? ¿Cómo hablas con tus hermanos en casa? Dilo.
En inglés.
Ujú. Tienes que hablar en inglés con ellos.
¿Por qué?
Porque no entienden español. He's wonder why he has to speak in English with everybody else.
Diego, can you tell us, I like my orange coat, or why you're wearing your orange coat in Spanish?
Estoy usando esto porque tengo mucho frío cuando estoy afuera.
Yeah, mucho frío. Good, thank you.
Now tell us what that meant, somebody.
Diles lo que significa en inglés.
I'm using this coat because when I'm outside, I'm really cold.
Yep,
Thank you.
thank you. Gracias.
That's it? Sure.
Okay, my name is Brenda Schaefer, and my daughter's in first grade at Bethesda. And I could piggyback a lot on what they've already said, so I won't get too much into that. I'll try. I'll start out by saying that we came across the dual language program. Our home school is Rose Glen, and I wanted to send my kids somewhere with a little bit more diversity. You know, culturally, socioeconomically, everything like that. So I started looking at what else the district had to offer. And, you know, I came across STEM and dual language were, you know, the most prominent options for me, besides just a different school. And I have an affinity for Spanish. I took Spanish in high school. It was my major in college. Haven't used it a lot since then, but I just thought that that would be a great opportunity to be surrounded by people from, you know, that she wouldn't normally maybe befriend. For instance, birthday parties that she now gets to go to. I mean, there are certain cultural things that she gets to experience in that way that she maybe wouldn't have otherwise. And the experience that she's had in the classroom of learning the English speakers and the Spanish speakers learning from each other. I get to witness the kids helping each other out, teaching each other, correcting each other, and there's no judgment, you know, because the native Spanish speakers are, you know, maybe trying to say some things in English and they're not getting it right. Well, the English speakers are there to help them out and help them correct it. And goes the other way, you know, so it's just that social aspect too, you know, learning the cultural things that she's just started first grade, and the things that she has learned about cultures globally already is just, you know, pretty great, things that they might not get into until later on in their education with social studies, things like that. So I just think that besides the education that she's getting, which is the exact same as the other classes, except she's being taught in Spanish. She's not missing out on anything in math, reading, or anything like that. She's just learning it in another language, which is, like she mentioned, thinking, or somebody said about thinking in Spanish or being able to switch off. Sometimes my daughter will hear something in Spanish and she'll respond. I'm not sure she recalls if she heard it in English or in Spanish. She's just responding to it, which is pretty great. I think that as adults, it takes you a lot longer to get to that point when learning another language, whereas when they start in kindergarten, they're more of a sponge, and that I think that happens more easily and quicker. And it also, I think, opens up the door later on for other languages that you might not take because you would have to take your German, English, or German, French, or Spanish. Well, now they've got the Spanish under the, in the bag, and they could maybe take Mandarin, which, I think learning another language after learning a second language might be easier to come by after having the background of doing so. So the choice that we made had a lot to do with the diversity and the education, and now hearing that they have the AP opportunities in the middle school and high school is incredible. To just get that leg up on college, which is, very important to my husband and I. And, like he was talking about the jobs, that's just, you have the same education level between two people. Somebody else is fluent in Spanish. Well, that speaks for itself. So I think that goes a long way for the kids later on in life, too. So even if she maybe put up a little bit of a fit at first when she couldn't understand her teacher at the very beginning, I think that, now she appreciates it a lot more, and especially when she's older, she's going to be very glad that she had this opportunity and that we went ahead and went through with it. So.
Do you and your daughter speak Spanish with each other?
I occasionally try to say things in Spanish. She usually tells me to speak in English instead. So that's apparently reserved for school and her friends.
Really?
Yeah.
Really, that's interesting.
Yes, but she does like it when I read her books in Spanish, so.
Well, now you've had, a strong background in your education in Spanish, in college and high school, et cetera. Does she speak as well as you used to, or better?
Oh, geez, that's not quite as good as, I once was. But, it's for just starting first grade.
Okay.
It's pretty incredible, the vocabulary that they have.
Well, the reason I said that is because young children acquire foreign languages with much greater ease
Oh, yeah.
than older students. And, it's been proven over many years that, if you start the children, and here's an example, when they're very young, they just take to it much easier than when we wait to middle school or high school to teach them a second language. So that's why I asked that question. It wasn't a foolish question. It's
Right.
really true that young children, and I see it, in my family, we have someone that's bilingual, and since the child was born, they speak that language. And the facility for learning languages when children are young is phenomenal. And United States education needs to understand that. And we need to do more of this across the country with our young children, because it's so much easier for children to develop that second language. So, thank you. Dr. Langell.
Thanks, and thank you all for being here. I really enjoyed hearing from you. I just want to get back a little bit to what Caitlin was saying, or what you were talking about, an ability to look at language, period. And I think it gets to what Brenda was saying. Once you've learned really another language plus your own, I think absolutely you learn your own. I used to teach actually Latin, and most of the time I ended up teaching English, because you can't understand a language like Latin or Spanish that's synthetic, where the end of a word changes by its use, unless you understand the function of that word. So I'm sure, Caitlin, when you're talking about being analytical and comparing the languages, you're learning just so much more than just English and Spanish. I mean, you're learning linguistics. And so if you go on and you decide to study Farsi or Mandarin or whatever, you know, as Brenda was saying, it will be so much easier because you will know how words function. And that's so bedrock important, you know, in terms of learning any language. So I think that's another kind of, you know, as Mark said, that's another kind of benefit of all of this. And, you know, I know you're further along, obviously, than Diego or than your daughter, but that's the kind of thing, I mean, as you go further, you'll see, I think, that ability that you now have to understand your own language, the second language, and then to learn a third or a fourth. You know, incredible opportunities ahead of you because of this. So thank you all for being here.
Omar, do you have something you'd like to share with us?
Sure. Now you can hear me? Okay. My name is Omar Macis, and I am currently teaching dual language kindergarten at Blair Elementary School. And just coming from the classroom perspective, it was interesting when I was presenting with the idea of teaching dual language. A lot of things came to my mind. But it was a great opportunity for me to say, this is a time for me to grow, to break a lot of paradigm that as a teacher we have we're carrying in our little bag, and be open to new way of teaching, new learners, and have those students come into your classroom. It is interesting, the first week, I remember, I was like, how is this gonna work? And the third day, I was so amazed by one of the students whose first language is English, and she said 2 words to me in Spanish. Agua, por favor. She wanted to drink water, and mochila, backpack. And it was the third day. So that motivated me, and I believe, and it is amazing how, even now that I'm teaching how to read it in Spanish, how to write in Spanish, and all in the content area, it is amazing that the English speakers, students, are using the English background to kind of make sense of the Spanish language, using the T and the sounds for the P, and I mean, they're catching on. And it's amazing. I thought that it was going to be very difficult, but right now they're helping each other during English time. It is amazing that they support each other. And during Spanish, that is 90% of the time, I had those kids who have proclaimed themselves to be the translator. When I'm talking to one student and I said, ¿Me puedes apagar la luz? And they're kind of just getting some words. Can you turn on the lights? So I have those translators, which is good. They support each other. And when English time comes, it's interesting because the other one is helping the other students.
Great.
So you have to think differently when it comes to teaching the dual language two-way, and be mindful of what you're planning, talking to the art teacher, to the music teacher, and plan together so what we're doing, it makes sense. So it's been interesting, it's been amazing, and I love teaching dual language two-way.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Capri.
That was a great way to put it, Omar, because I think that everybody on the board had the same concerns that you had, because we also have our little bag of what we think education is about. Because we have such varied backgrounds, tech guys and engineers and college professors and educators. Teachers, yeah. So I think it's great that we have an administration that knows how to get people to break out of what we view as traditional education and get into what is true education, and that's making it there for everybody and innovating in the Waukesha School District.
And can I say something? It is interesting because I heard somebody say this, and it's interesting when I'm with my friends and they know now that I'm teaching Spanish to English speakers. They think that I'm working for a private school. So they go, "You're not working for the school district of Waukesha?" And I go, "Yes, I'm still continuing working for the school district of Waukesha." Because nobody will think that we're going to invest a lot of time, resources, and money to have this program. And they are just amazed that we made that decision.
That's right. Very true. Mr. Baumgart, did you want to?
Just a couple of things. how things have changed. I grew up in a family in a household where it was two languages, English and German. My grandparents and my parents spoke German, and if they were speaking German, it was something that Billy and Carl and Don weren't supposed to hear. That's the way it worked. It meant they were talking about something we weren't in on. So I didn't learn anything. But what I wanted to do is really tell all of you how I appreciate the fact that you have come with this stories to us. It confirms that those of us that were on CNI and on the board, 7 years maybe, this first came up with us? I don't know, 6, 7 years ago, that we did something right. We don't always hear that. So the feedback that we get from you is so encouraging to us that we took a step and it paid off. And I'd like you to know that I appreciate hearing that from you and your families. So thank you.
I would just like to add that perhaps about 100 years ago, because I think my mother would be over 100 now, you know, she was a first-generation American. And so around 1912, 1915, 1920, everybody in Milwaukee spoke 2 languages because Milwaukee was full of immigrants from Germany, Ireland, Italy, Sicily, Austria, etc. But the interesting part is that they didn't share that second language with their children and their children's children, etc., because they so fiercely wanted to be American and they didn't want to be associated with that other language. So as soon as grandma, great-grandma and grandpa were gone, or my grandma and grandpa were gone, there was no more speaking of Austrian or no more speaking of Italian in the families. And so we children who were very young at that time, and of course we didn't understand the language because they made no effort to teach it to us because we were American, foreign languages got lost to the United States. So I think it's been with the coming of the new immigrants to the United States that has made speaking another language important, and it excites me because I'm sorry that my ancestors didn't do that for me, and so therefore I couldn't do it for my children. And so you're making it so important again, as it is, and you pointed out all the reason it is. So thank you for sharing the importance and the beauty of speaking another language. I think it's so phenomenal when children can do that. And I'm really serious. I'm a former kindergarten teacher, Omar, and I taught at Blair a long time ago. You don't. Yeah, I knew that. And I taught at Bethesda, kindergarten. And, you know, of course, there weren't anything to do with bilingualism at that time. So it's exciting how far we've come in this district to broaden the lives of our children education. So thank you for your beliefs, and my goodness, thank you for your support, and spread it around because, you know, this is a phenomenal school district, and this is just one wonderful thing we're doing for the education of kids.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Wow, that was wonderful.
Yeah.
I hope it was okay that I said that, but it was true.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah,
I never
speak
had
a
a
little
chance.
Swedish.
Never had a chance to learn Italian, and my grandma did not speak English, so I didn't
No,
understand
it was frowned on.
Yeah, nobody made any effort to teach us anything,
Right.
so, anyway. Okay, moving
good.
forward, what an exciting presentation.
That was good.
That was really good. And we're going to hear again next month about bilingual.
Next month, we'll begin an update on the enrollment and programming models, forecasting into the future.
And how things are going, and since we went from one school to 4 schools in different quadrants of the city. Great, it's going to be exciting report. We're looking forward to that. All right, now we're going to move into our action items, and we'll begin with new course offerings. Ryan, will you take us into that, please?
Yeah, I'm going to go right in order, the way that it's printed on
Okay.
the agenda. And so we have different groups that will represent or can answer some questions about each course. So our first course offering, and the new one we're looking at, is the Waukesha Engineering Preparatory Academy Biological Engineering with Adam and McDonald, and Amy Lang are here tonight.
Hi, Amy.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. And I have to tell you, our presentation probably won't be quite as entertaining as the last one, and it won't be in Spanish, so.
Going to be amazing, though.
We are always on the path to give our kids every opportunity that is available through our two academies and broaden their horizons. And as you look at, especially in the first case, the area of engineering, all of the different opportunities and all the different types of engineers that there are. And so we're trying to give our students that well-rounded opportunity. And so the first course that we're bringing forward is the one for the Engineering Academy, and that is called Biological Engineering. And I'm sorry, I don't know, Adam McDonald is, if you weren't aware, is the new dean of both the Health Academy and the Engineering Academy. So we are thrilled to have him on board, and I'm thrilled to be working with him as he oversees the direction of the academies and trying to take them to the next level. And so Adam and I were working together on this curriculum and looking at how we can help move things forward.
Great, welcome, Adam.
Thank you.
So as we looked at the Engineering Academy and really following along the path of Project Lead the Way and what it has to offer, we want to keep up with those possibilities and those opportunities that they present. So they are looking at a new one called Biological Engineering, and it really, what they've done now is they previously had a course called Biotechnical Engineering. And as we looked back, and Mary Jo helped us out, we think that course was probably approved when the Engineering Academy was approved 8, 9, 10 years ago, something like that. But we couldn't find it on record, and we couldn't find an old understanding by design, so we said, let's just start over. So Project Lead the Way is phasing out the biotechnical engineering and bringing with it instead the biological engineering. And the course description that's on the UBD is right from the Project Lead the Way website. And with them looking at the genetic engineering, biofuels, biomanufacturing, you know, there's a possibility that in the future that we might be able to do some crossover projects with the Health Academy as well. You know, not the entire course, but maybe they could work together on some of those things as it would relate to the healthcare field. I will be honest in that I actually happened to be at a STEM conference last week and was able to sit next to our contact at MSOE, who does the training for the different classes and is the Wisconsin affiliate for Project Lead the Way. And we were talking about this, and he said he's hoping that everything will be ready. PLTW right now has scheduled this to be ready for fall of 2015. But it might not be that all of their curriculum will be done at that point in time. So we would still like to get it approved. We would still like to offer it and see if it runs as an elective for students in our engineering academy. But realize that we need to be flexible, that if PLTW doesn't come through, that we may have to put it on hold for a year, but we would still like to be able to have it approved and offer it as soon as Project Lead the Way is ready.
Okay. Can I ask?
Yes.
Amy, thanks so much, and Adam as well. I think it looks very, very exciting, and I sort of have a dim memory of what you were talking about with the biotechnical, and I'm not sure, again, splitting hairs, how marginally alike or different they are. But, you know, I understand your list of enduring understandings. I mean, those make sense to me. But as I was reading through this, and again, it probably is a format question, when you say essential questions, you know, were I to be a parent or, you know, a high school student, looking at, for instance, the first bullet, how will biological engineering be impacted if the processes aren't followed? You know, I guess I like statements, and I know you have to do questions here. How would the quality of life be affected without biomedical engineering? I mean, I guess I would like, and again, you may not be able to do this, but I'm just so intrigued that I would like to see a statement like, our quality of life would be affected without biotechnical engineering in the following 6 ways. You know, so I know you probably can't do that, but to me, that's really intriguing. Or like the third bullet, can the role of an engineer change the course of an investigation? Well, yeah, I think so, right? So, I mean, in a sense, aren't we sort of stating in a way something that we already have the answer to? But you have to put it as this kind of open-ended question, I guess,
Well,
huh?
what we're really trying to do now, and with students, is more of an inquiry type process, that we want them to get excited by the questions,
Mm-hmm.
and that they go kind of fishing for the answers, and then
Okay.
that leads to more questions, and to
Okay.
become intrigued by it. And
Fair
so with the essential questions, that's exactly, they're put in there
Okay.
for that reason, because we want the kids to find the information and not just us to give it to them.
Okay, no, I understand, and I know it's a format thing, so that's good. I would,
Yes.
if I may, move approval of this.
Certainly,
Okay.
certainly. Is there a second? Okay, any further discussion, questions? Okay, all those in favor of approving the new course offering, biological engineering, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Mary Jo, motion passes
4-0,
5-0.
or 5-0.
Okay, great.
I will also, I just want to interject that Adam and I and the teachers in the academy are also looking at, Project Lead the Way is now coming out with some new curriculum also down the road in computer science. And we realize that that's probably something that's not as strong in our district as we would like it to be. And specifically, as we may look at that for the district as a whole, there's a specific course on software engineering that we possibly would like to introduce to the engineering academy probably a year from now. So we're always looking at what's possible, but software engineering is an area that's missing, and that they need more of those types of engineers, and so we're going to try and pursue that in the future.
Amy, could you just very quickly explain before we get on to the next one, what the dean of the academies does?
I'm gonna let you
I'd
explain that.
appreciate that.
Sure. Currently, I help with both governance boards for the Engineering and Health Academy, overseeing those, setting those up, getting community members, partners, business partners on board and helping us out, drive the mission of the teachers, kids, the board, helping our teachers out in the classroom as best as I see fit and what they would need help in, mentoring kids, helping them out, answering their questions, guiding them down the path. Those are the big ones.
Okay, thank you.
As we look at transitioning, I'm sorry, Bill, as we look at transitioning and trying to become more project-based, more personalized learning, Adam's taking a large role in that. He's already arranged for a group to go visit some other academies to see what they're doing. And so as we look to phase in integrated learning as well, Adam's overseeing all of that.
Okay, Mr.
And
Baumgart.
the two governance boards and Tim Joint, the
Yes.
principal over there, saw a value in, there's some integration between those two curriculums, so
Yes.
the health and the engineering. And I think Adam will be able to communicate between the two of them and
Great.
see to it that we got a need here and
Great.
an opportunity
That's
over
great.
there, so you can merge them.
Great, make it even stronger.
Good idea.
Great, thank you, thank you. All right, please go on, Amy.
Okay, so the second class then we're proposing for tonight is Biomedical Innovation, and this is for the Health Academy. This is the fourth in a series of 4 courses that's offered through Project Lead the Way Biomedical program. And this one would be similar to the course that we offer now in the Engineering Academy. That's called Engineering Design and Development, and it really is a capstone course of the previous 3 classes that they offer. And a big part of this one, you'll notice it's presented in problems, and the Project Lead the Way in the Biomedical is always in terms of looking at situations, looking at problems, so it's very real world. But it's also about that innovation part and inventions, and they look at, and hoping we can work it out, that these students would be able to work with community mentors, and they will do a kind of year-ending cumulative project that involves learning from many different facets and from their previous years to look at something innovative in the biomedical field.
Okay. Any questions, Mr. Baumgart?
Well, yeah, I'm a strong believer in what we're doing here. back in the mid-sixties, I was an engineering student at Marquette University, and I had the opportunity to attend the first biomedical engineering course that they've ever delivered there.
Really?
Which had no textbook. You had a pad of paper and somebody talking to you.
Oh,
But you,
yeah.
but you still got to do a project. So to see this advancement and understanding that we are now introducing stuff like this to our wonderful students at the Health Academy is very positive, and I'm going to move for approval of this.
Okay, thank
I'll
you. Is there a
second.
second? All right, any questions, concerns,
I just, no,
comments?
no concern
Yeah.
at all. And again, this all, it's just so exciting to see us jump in such a positive direction. And I don't know with our things, so forgive me for this, Amy, but if these go to, someplace at DPI, on point 2, essential questions, just might want to change the spelling of versus there.
Thank you.
That's right. But also, and I don't know how much higher up it goes, so it may not, but also there's a book, and I bet, Adam, you probably know about it. I think that our kids in both the health professions and our engineering academy might want to just grab it and read it, or we could at least assign chapters. And I'm almost finished with it. I mean, I recommend it. Okay, you would love it. It's a brand new book called The Innovators. Have you heard about that?
I
I have not.
Walter Isaacson. It's phenomenal. It's the history of the innovators. It's the history of the development of the microchip and computers and the internet as to how it all came about. And one of the main themes in there isn't just the story, which is fascinating, but also the theme of collaboration, and that's what you were talking about. And he talks so much about how the collaboration and how people, nurtured and fed each other. And I think it's such a great book for people who are looking at innovation and how
That's-
it's come about historically. It's a wonderful, wonderful book. So,
That's great. And
Walter Isaacson. It's fabulous.
we, again, going that cross-curricular route, and it's very powerful if we can combine the medical piece, the healthcare profession piece, and along with the English, is what really is going to, I think, move kids forward.
Yeah, great.
Great, wonderful. Okay, we've had a motion. It's been moved and seconded, so of accepting the principles of biomedical science, biomedical innovations. So all those who are in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, 5-0, Mary Jo.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. You always bring such exciting things to us. Okay, next, oh boy, advanced calculus. That's out of my,
We're gonna need a flow chart to understand this next one, which is on page 2. But
yes.
I'm gonna let Dan Paczynski introduce this next one.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
It's hard to follow that very exciting information that we just got from the academies over at South. But we're very excited to be offering an additional pathway to get more students through both AP Calc AB and AP Calc BC by the time they finish their senior year in high school. The easiest way to explain it is to look at the flow chart that's in your packets. The proposed courses are highlighted in blue, and they run in parallel in that sequence you see that we currently have. The reason why we're very excited to offer this is because currently a lot of our brightest students in math come into the high school and they enter honors geometry. And as they go through the next course they take, if you follow the sequence, they'd go into Algebra 2, then Pre-Calc, then they'd finish their 4th year at Calc AB, so Calc 1. And no matter how hard they try, there's no way to overlap that for them to get through the final Calc 2 or Calc BC for AP. So this accelerated track would give them that opportunity to finish Calc 1 and both Calc and Calc 2. And with the opportunity of earning up to, is it 8 or 10?
10
10
college AP credits.
college AP credits by the end of their senior year.
Wow. Karen?
Thank you. Is this only if they complete algebra in 8th grade? So when it says
This,
here,
This would actually allow more than just students who finish algebra in 8th grade to get there, because there are other opportunities to overlap courses here in the district. If a student comes in who just takes 8th grade math and enters in their freshman year as an algebra student, they can actually take geometry and algebra 2 concurrently.
Oh, they can.
Yep, which would then allow them, as long as they're in the honors track, to go down and take the accelerated Calc 1 and Calc 2 options. So this is opening the door for more students to have that opportunity, where currently the only students who can get through Calc BC with our current offerings are students that come into high school their freshman year entering Algebra 2, which is pretty rare when you consider our whole system.
Right, right. Okay. Any other questions, Mr.
Yeah,
Baumgart?
On your flow chart, I'm just trying to understand something. So if they drop down from honors algebra 2 and take the two accelerated classes, they will not take those other classes?
Yeah, that's correct.
But is the content that you've been striving to get across in A, B, and BC, is that going to be embedded in the two new courses?
That's correct. So essentially, what these, in the accelerated courses, they'd be essentially taking pre-calc, Calc 1, or Calc AB and Calc BC, condensed instead of over 3 years, over 2 years.
Wow.
And the way that we were able to logically go through and try to plan this out is by eliminating a lot of the overlap of the curriculum that happens in those courses.
Do you see the other courses going away?
We don't see anything going away. We still see those being right there, strong for our kids to continue to use and take. But this would just be an additional track for our most accelerated kids. Give some of our brightest kids who don't get into Algebra 2 as freshmen the opportunity to go through all the calc options.
Wow.
Can I? Oh, you want to go? No. Dan, thanks. And this chart helps a lot, and I'm trying to sort of put 7th, 8th, 9th grades and so forth here, but I know you can't do that real easily. But what percentage, or what number even, concrete number, of students are going to actually be able to go through Calc BC or Calc 2?
Well,
Are we talking about 10?
we're hoping that's going to be a lot more, and I'm going to have Eric talk to that a little bit more than myself. But right now, we currently have about, I don't know, average between 10 to 15 kids getting to Calc BC right now
As seniors.
as seniors.
So now they would do it as juniors.
Now they would, well, Eric?
Possibility, yes. I'm Eric Fontaine. I'm the Calc BC teacher over at West. We do combined with South and West. And currently there are only 8 students at West in Calc BC, and then we have 3 students that come over from South in the morning. It's before school. So between the 2 high schools, you're only looking at 11 kids. Now, if you follow the flow chart, I also teach the Algebra 2 honors. I have 3 classes of 99 students. So if you follow that flow chart, going through there, picking the brightest of the bright, I'm looking at maybe 50 to 60 kids that now have an opportunity to get through Calc BC instead of Calc AB. That means by the time they finish Calc BC, they can take the AP exam and not earn just the 5 credits from AB, but also the 10 credits from BC. So they could, pay off 10 credits of math before they get there.
Okay, and you have them now in, you said honors algebra 2? And what grade are they?
I have them from 9th to 11th.
Wow.
So this would really apply more to the 9th, though, I presume, in some ways.
Depending where they come in, like right now, if we have students coming in that maybe weren't identified or accelerated in middle school, they could walk into the high school at 9th grade algebra. That could happen, and like Dan said before, they could double up with honors geometry and honors algebra 2 to catch up. So it's a possibility of still getting there.
My last question, and it's not an easy one, and I don't know the answer, so maybe you do, any of you, but the more I hear from different universities, some of them, the sort of so-called top, most competitive, is that there's a little bit of a mini rumbling on the ground, almost a revolution, a little bit, against AP, where a lot of departments at universities are saying, we're not real happy with this, we want them to come and we want them to take it here and get it. And that's a movement that you read about now in education. Have there been studies that you are aware of, or is this just so new nationally, about how a good university, and certainly Madison is one in our state and there are others, certainly in the Midwest, not just on the East Coast, but how this is playing out on the university level.
I can tell you from experience, I've been teaching the AP classes for the last 15 years, I believe. Last year's here, and I taught at New Berlin Eisenhower for 13 years before here. And the only schools that have been rumbling that I've heard of are the big schools like Harvard, they're talking Yale, Duke, even locally Marquette. Like you mentioned, Madison, there's no rumbling. They take all the kids, all their credits pass, all the UW schools in Wisconsin, all take it, Minnesota. So mostly the public schools are fine with it. It's the private schools that you hear the rumbling from.
Yeah, that's what I'm reading too.
And is that money?
Well, it could be. I mean,
'Cause they
sometimes the
honestly-
departments,
but private schools give them the credit for the math. They will give them those credits, but they still require them to take additional classes that they pay for.
Right.
So it's not the issue of the credit and what's going on, more so than they want some more
right,
money for
although
classes.
some of them now want nothing less than a 4 and nothing less than a 5 too.
The other schools are changing, yes.
Yeah.
Some schools, UW system, depending on like the AP Calc, AB, 4 or 5, you get your full 5 credits of calculus. If you get a 3, you still get 3 elective credits. The Calc BC in Madison, if you get a 3, you get all 10 credits. So depends, each college is a little different, so.
Sure, sure.
You know, you can go on the line and they've changed it.
Yeah, there's a list you
There's a
can
listing,
see,
you can go
yeah.
on, you can see, yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Could you, getting back to this outline, where it says year one, could that be, could you now translate that into grade levels?
It's really tough to translate into grade levels because
Okay.
as kids enter into high school, they could be anywhere from year 1 all the way up to year 3. And
Really?
And sometimes even year 4 as they enter in as freshmen. So it's really tough to translate into grade level.
Okay.
The one really important takeaway that I want you to have is right now the only kids that can get through Calc BC currently with our offerings are kids that come in at Honors Algebra 2 as freshmen.
Yeah.
And Eric, you teach Honors Algebra 2.
So I give you an idea, out of my 99 students at West that I have, 15 are freshmen. I have 1 junior, the rest are sophomores.
The rest are?
The rest are sophomores.
Sophomores,
So
okay.
they're, you know, that's where they should be, that's accelerated, but we do have some students coming in, like I said, 15 are at the Honors Algebra 2. This will allow them to get through Calculus A, B, and BC, and still this senior year be able to take AP Stats without having to double up. So it's offering them another 5 credits that they can earn from any university school in Wisconsin.
So then are you saying that algebra, the geometry courses, Algebra 2 are available for students in middle school?
Right now, we have the algebra and geometry, definitely. The students who are taking the Algebra 2 classes are more so independent study. There's not like a class. I have a few students who've walked in that's on the transcripts, but it wasn't taught by, it was like Alex. or
So they
Vanda.
don't travel to the high school for that? No? Okay.
I wish it's something that would be done, absolutely, but it's not.
No, it's done in other places.
Yep,
so-
and we've done it in the past here in the district, and we're continuing to look into that. So currently, right now, there's only 15 students that could get to the BC level at Waukesha West, and it's probably reflective across the district. With this offering, it would go all the way up to an additional 70 students have that possibility. Will it get there? That would be amazing.
That's the goal. I'd like to see.
So you're the genius that teaches Calc A, BBC?
Not a genius now, but I've been teaching a while, that helps.
Certainly you are in my book.
I would move,
Mr. Baumgart?
we're both moving and seconding approval.
Okay, so. Second, okay. It's been moved and seconded that we accept the new course offerings in math, Accelerated Calculus 1, Accelerated Calculus 2. Any further questions, comments? Okay, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
No? Okay, 5-0. Mary Jo. Okay, another new course offering. Ryan, take us into that. What exciting things are.
It is, and it's also another chance to get a chance to meet all of our great new coordinators like Dan Paczynski, and now we're going to welcome Erica Miller back up to the podium, and then get a chance and Looks like Tim Hannon and Greta are here as well.
Oh, God, that girl.
So AP Physics 2.
I saw her yesterday.
Hello and thank you. I have brought Tim Hannon and Greta Voigt with me, two of our amazing AP Physics teachers. Last year, the College Board changed AP Physics B into two separate courses, AP Physics 1 and AP Physics 2, allowing students to take two separate AP exams and earn credit for 2 semesters worth of college credit. So instead of cramming all the information into 1 year, getting 4 credits, they now can get 8 credits of college physics by doing this. This year, we have students taking AP Physics 1 through a name change process we went through last year. So students are currently juniors and seniors taking it. We're proposing to be approved AP Physics 2 so these students can continue their progression of physics coursework in accordance to what the College Board has put forth. It's different content broken into these 2 different years, so they get a wide variety of this physics work done while in high school.
So would they take AP Physics rather than just regular physics?
Yes.
Okay. Just needed to know that.
Yeah, currently
Okay.
AP Physics 1 is one of our options for our juniors in our Align by Design
Okay.
group.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just
I
want to
Did have, no.
go ahead.
Okay.
I'm looking for something.
Yeah, as I was reading through this, and thank you again for doing all this, background, it says the AP program has replaced AP Physics B with 2 separate full-year courses. So if I'm a junior, I could take AP Physics 1, algebra-based, or AP Physics 2, algebra-based. I don't understand why we have to say algebra-based. It sounds redundant.
That's what the College Board calls the course. It's, well, and we have what's called AP Physics C, which we don't currently have right now, which is a calc-based physics.
Okay, so
So
that's
actually,
why it's just-
piggybacking on what you approved with math, this will allow more students, we could bring in
Okay.
AP Physics C, which is
Thank
the
you.
calc-based version.
That answers it, thank you.
Always does.
Another question. Greta, do you ever stop smiling?
It's a good thing. It's a good thing.
It is a good thing.
Nice
It
picture,
is-
by the way, Mr. Gray.
It
Yeah, I
is a
just saw
good-
that. Just saw that.
No, she answered my question.
Okay, fine. Any other questions? Okay, then we're ready for the motion.
I'll move for approval of the, we got 200 pieces of paper with, it's AP Physics
AP
2,
stuff.
right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a second? Second?
Second.
Okay. All right, it's been moved and seconded that we accept the new course offering, Science AP Physics 2. All those in favor, respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Okay. 5-0, Mary Jo.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for being here. Okay, Ryan. Is that next?
Yeah.
That's next, okay.
I don't know how you do this, Mary Jo. I don't know how you do this.
She said she wished,
Oh,
she said she wished she got the blue and couldn't come to work for a week,
I bet.
but it's very well organized. this
Oh,
time.
it is.
Do I love the fact that, you got it separated by school, and that, on the,
Exceptional job.
on the first sheet, are all the different requests. So it just made it, the organization was just phenomenal, so appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Take it away.
All right, the stack we have in front of you, please lift with your knees, was prepared and organized and summarized by Mary Jo. And again, thank you very much. We didn't see her for a couple of days just because she was behind the paper and not out in the
Sure.
building. But as you've gotten a chance to take a look, these are broken down by schools. There's a number of different events and a number of different reasons why many of these overnight trips do occur. Everything from qualifying in competitions to extending a learning experience for students as well as other competitions. So some of these are known. Also, some of these are unknown and require successful competitions and pieces like that. We did use a form to try to ensure that we had hit a number of criteria that we put together for these, everything that ensure safety, ensure clear communication, and ensure participation and availability to all students. So those have been put together throughout There are a couple areas that I think still require some conversation and some closure pieces, but those are just more about details in some of the planning that we've gone, or have gone into it. So at this point, I'm gonna we'll take it away, and do we want to go one at a time? I know there are some people in the audience that could speak to any particular questions we may have on certain ones as well, so.
Okay.
I just have a few.
So you want to take questions from us?
We can go through each one, or we can take questions if there was general big questions, that's what I was hoping. But we do have different people in the audience, again, that could speak to some pieces, and we also have a question and answer form put together, as well as some things that maybe have been called in beforehand that we tried to get some clarification
Well,
on
I
as
think it would be very time-consuming to go through each one.
Agreed.
If we didn't have any concerns, so maybe each one of us could share our concerns. I mean, I've got some concerns, but some of them were answered already, so
Okay.
I don't have to address all of them.
Yeah.
And I don't have too many, so I'll try to make it real quick, but let me go through where I wrote them down here. Let's see, and Mary Jo, if you can answer it, somebody I'm sure can. The choir from North looks like it's gonna head to Luther College twice, and that's probably a good thing. Luther's great, but I wasn't quite sure if I saw in the justification why twice was necessary.
They were invited to run as part. They were invited at a certain event or festival. correct?
Joey Highland.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Joey Highland.
Correct. The one in April was a very unique possibility that had never presented itself in the past, where they invited us to come and be a part of a special day. We were one of 4 choirs invited from the whole Midwest to hang out and not hang out, but to work with them, to work with them all day and work with the college choir, work with their college choir, work with their world-renowned faculty.
Yeah.
So it's quite different than the experience that was applied for in January.
Okay, so January, no, it's actually November, it looks like.
No, it's
Gonna-
it dropped down a line, that's confusing again.
Yeah,
I put a lot in, I'm sorry.
okay, so January, not November. Going there for a separate reason and then going back, okay.
Correct.
Thank you, just wondered.
Sure.
And then, you sort of got to this, Mary Jo, but I don't know, I don't see Mike Foster. But it looks like our art students are gonna stay in a flop house compared to the Waldorf for our Saratoga STEM. When you look at New York City, we have $1,500 versus $900. They're both 3 days in New York City. That's incredible.
And I said that
I know, you-
Mike Foster has done this
Oh, yes.
20-plus years.
Yep.
He's done it enough that he runs the excursions himself instead of going through a agency that takes them. There was a question about Washington DC with Butler and Horning and why there was a cost difference.
Right, I
And
saw
that's
that.
because they have an additional stop at Gettysburg. So
Right.
every time they add on those stops or those sightseeings or those learning opportunities, it increases that cost factor.
So
Where
Mike is gonna be saving kids about $600.
Mike goes to all of the art institutes,
Yeah.
music halls. I mean, they are, he's been there enough that I think he could run his own tour company.
No, I understand
New
that, but I
York.
mean, 3 nights in New York and
It does make a big
transportation,
difference, though.
that's an incredible deal.
It's a pretty small group that goes to usually.
Well, but that may be, but it's still $600 difference, so, okay, that's great. And I think I only had one other, and it is also sort of choir-related, but it's the Courtney Gildersleeve, Andy Hacker, Jason Brinker, and it looks,
He's here. They're here.
okay. And again, I'm not opposed to this, believe me, I'm not, but it looks like from south, you're going to no, not the Dalles, St. Louis and San Antonio, maybe,
That,
and out to Camp Whitcomb Mason, which might be a come down after St. Louis and San Antonio. But I just wondered why those are all in there.
I'll speak on the Camp Whitcomb Mason. It's the orchestra and the choir, and every year we do a team building trip out there, and we
That's great.
rehearse, and we bring in clinicians, and so that's kind of our yearly.
Yeah, it's happened for at least 7 years and
Yeah.
probably back.
Yeah, I think when my daughter was in orchestra, and oh, you guys sounded so good too
Oh, thank you.
on Sunday. But then what's the St. Louis, San Antonio?
That trip is a combined venture between the choir band and orchestra. The San Antonio portion of the trip was kind of what was planned, but then as a way to break the trip up and allow for a stop that was more than just run to McDonald's, grab something, and get
Sure,
back on the bus. We're offering them an opportunity to explore another great American city in St. Louis. And so they do have an excursion. It's for an entire evening. We do the Gateway Arch.
Yep.
We do performance while we're in St. Louis at a fantastic acoustical space, and then we load back on the bus and then drive another 20 hours down to
That makes
Texas.
perfect sense. And if you go to the Arch, Powell Hall is just
Oh,
3
absolutely.
blocks
Yeah, yeah.
from the Arch. I'm from St. Louis, so
I was
that's
wondering if you
Symphony
knew that,
Hall.
because when you referred to it as
Yeah,
a
yeah.
great city, you really.
I was, yeah,
note
I
with
did
that.
that on purpose, absolutely. Yes.
Very good, very good. No, it sounds wonderful. Thank you. That's all I have.
On that same trip, you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, very well documented. But what about the 10th, the 11th, and the 12th? You have nothing.
We're working with our tour company right now, who is still working on securing performance opportunities for us and tour opportunities for us, because we haven't been able to start fundraising officially until just recently. We couldn't lock anything in because we didn't have any secure payments for anything. So those dates are still open right now and in flux, because we still need to nail them down in terms of deposits from student involvement, and to see what kind of student involvement we're going to have for the trip.
So you're looking for performances
Performances
Okay.
and tour opportunities.
in the San Antonio area?
That is correct.
Okay.
Additionally, we do have a likely clinic opportunity in San
Okay.
Antonio at UTSA.
Okay.
And so that is just, that has to be worked out by us.
Okay.
The travel agency feels that we probably have a better connection. In fact, Mrs. Gildersleeve right here has, her former orchestra director
Yes.
is the director of orchestras at UTSA
Well-
currently. And so we've got that connection already, and so that actually makes it a lot easier. So
Would
we are
you-
planning portions of it yet.
Would you inform Mary Jo so she can share that information with us when you get it all
Absolutely.
packed up together? Because it just didn't, I wondered, what are they gonna do for the next 3 days?
Yeah.
There's no beach in San Antonio,
No,
so.
for sure.
Mr. McCaffrey, did you wanna have a question?
I have a real simple one. I should have got this out ahead of time, but I don't know if they're, the South, this is not these guys. Oh, are we switching to another one now?
Go right ahead.
Okay, the South debate team is going to Appleton. It's going to cost between $25 and $50 per student for a couple days. I'm wondering if that's food and housing? I should have asked you that ahead of time, but I just forgot it. I will assume that they're going to somehow get by on $25 to $50 a day, and maybe they're going to.
Sounds cheap.
Sleep in the gym?
You know, didn't it say that they're gonna use some fund money from,
Some of them will actually do
They
group
have a fund.
fundraising, and then they offset the cost to the
Oh,
family.
this is, okay, this is what's left for the student to pay.
Yes.
yes.
I see.
Yes.
I buy that.
Yes,
Thank
yes, they use some funding. Okay, Mr. McCaffrey, do you have questions?
No, I think all
Concerns?
my questions were covered.
Okay, I guess, most of my questions were covered, but, I was just a little concerned about, now let's see, which one was it? It was the middle school. Saratoga. That the trip to Washington DC, no, that was Louisville. It was Washington.
For Butler or Horning?
Horning.
Horning and Butler are going to Washington.
Yeah.
You talk about New York City?
Saratoga.
Okay, I'm talking about New York City. So that was,
That's Saratoga.
Ann Eaker and Josh, yeah, it's Saratoga. And I noticed that the cost is $15.29. But you've got 2 traveling days and really only 2 days in New York, and that just seemed like a long ways to go and a big expense for 2 days versus 4 full days. So, is there anyone that could respond to that, or?
I have, Barb, I have an overview that I can share with everybody. I'm not too connected to that process. We did switch from DC to New York this year with the purpose being we've done DC the last 2 to 3 years.
Sure.
We wanted to give the students a different opportunity.
Sure,
I can tell you all the students are running their own fundraising operations.
that's okay,
They're all
yeah.
contributing to all their costs
Right.
to offset the initial expense. And the entire operation.
Okay, but that, again, it still seems like a lot of money for, you know, when you figure they travel one day, 2 days, going and coming, so they really only have 2 full days in New York. I'm sure they'll do as much, you know, as they can on the travel days, but still, it's somewhat shortened. And it seems like, you know, I know New York is very expensive, and so is Washington, but it just seemed like such a far ways to go for such a great expense for 4 days, and that was just a concern I had. So you might want to share that with them?
I definitely will.
Okay.
Definitely.
I mean, I don't,
I'll share all the information I have with the
Okay.
board as well.
okay,
That they've passed on to me.
right.
So.
I mean, I don't see that it won't be approved, but it just seems, you know, it just seems so much for such a short time. Ryan, did you want to add something?
Yeah, and I know it is in the packet on this packet, and just to point out where it is, so I can get a detail, it is pretty detailed, almost down to the hour of
It
where
is.
they'll be.
It is.
Monday night, including from
Yes.
Top of the Rock and Times Square dinner to even the Thursday that they leave, they're actually doing Radio City Music Hall on the day they travel out at 11:30 a.m. So looks like they've tried.
But Monday, they don't get there till, you know, they don't get there till late in the afternoon, like maybe
Correct.
5 o'clock, so 7 o'clock till 10:15, they're gonna tour, so they've really lost a full day.
Yeah.
A full day. And then on Thursday, you know, they're gonna be very busy in the morning, but again, it's just a half day, so it just seemed, you know, a lot of money for 2 full days. I mean, we could spend 20 full days there and still not see
Yeah.
everything, but. So that was just a concern of mine, that it was a
Definitely.
short period of time.
I can pass that on to them.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I just have one
Yes.
other concern, and Brian, I don't know to whom I should address it, but I know that, you know, Butler's doing one, but I don't see Central here at all, and Central seems to be sort of left out of this Washington DC junket. It's sort of left out of everything.
And Rob is here. I don't know if Rob from Central can talk about that, but they are, almost all of these trips are up to individual sites.
I know that, but
so-
still.
Yeah, so I don't know if Rob has a,
There are many times we've passed due to financial hardships for our students, which is definitely changing and looking for ways to find opportunities and community connections to increase the opportunity for those trips.
Yeah.
We've invested and reached out to the Washington DC group to get the plan started for next year. We've also had our foreign language department work on some ventures that they're starting to plan as well. Rather do it hastily to try to meet a deadline, we wanted to make sure we could cover costs effectively for everyone.
Thank you. I hope so, because I hate to see one whole school with no options at all, so.
The teachers that run these programs are aware of the application for financial assistance that's attached, so that, you know, the district is aware, and, you know, that help can be provided as needed, or if needed, or somewhat needed. Ryan?
I think they are, but I definitely we will be much more aggressive in communicating that information and
Please.
trying to, and show some flexible options as well as
Yes.
encourage
Right.
some pieces as we go, so.
Because some of the teachers that prepared these trips would say, which I thought was very interesting, and in the parent letter, they said, well, we'll pay for the trip up front for you, but then we'll make out a plan for you to pay us back. And I didn't, that isn't what we've ever discussed, that the kids that couldn't afford to go would have, like a loan, make a loan with the school and have a payback, and that definitely was included in one of these. I'll show you where it is. I just thought it was very inappropriate, because that was never,
Yeah, never.
you know, the idea of this board. We wanted to make the trip as, you know, possible for everyone to attend. So I thought, you know, well, then but then they had, you know, the financial assistance thing attached, and I just thought, why would they do that? It just seemed to defeat the purpose. So I'll show you where it is, and then we can talk to that school individually. Oh, and then I have one more, Butler. Your Washington trip. Again, June 16th to June 19th, 1350. And again, you have 2 days of travel, so you travel on the 16th, and you got the 17th and the 18th for full-time touring, and then the 19th they come home. So I just think that that's, 2 days of travel and 2 days of touring really doesn't cut it with me. So maybe you could find out, I know it's money. Obviously, the longer you stay, the more you have to pay, because lodging in Washington and eating in Washington is very costly. But these companies that offer these, I think should make it a little bit more affordable for schools so that they can have an adequate amount of time. Yes.
Just a thought, and you probably looked into this, so I'm not sure who I'm suggesting this to, but when I did long ago take a whole group of students to Europe, we stayed in hostels and that sort of thing, and that worked out just fine, no bed bugs, nothing. But I know that National History Day, when they go to Washington, and you're going in summer, essentially, they could stay in a college dorm at College Park, Maryland. I mean, and I just wondered too, I don't know what options you've looked at, but sometimes if you go when the colleges aren't full, they're thrilled to rent out dorm rooms, and so, anyway, just an idea.
Well, I think that looking at all of these applications, that there's companies that approach our staff and try to make it as lucrative as possible. I think one is called, was it World Strides?
There's a bunch of them, yeah.
Yeah, there's 2 companies I noticed, and, they try to make it lucrative to the teachers, because a teacher did tell me that they try to make it very lucrative, but I don't know how lucrative it is anymore when you pay, $1,500 for 4 days. I don't know that I would go to New York for 4 days for $1,500. I'd find a much easier way, or a much cheaper way. But anyway, that is a major concern of mine. Okay, let me see rules. But please make sure, the principals that are here, is that your teachers understand what that financial assistance situation is all about, because, again, we don't want to discriminate against any kids that have, would have a difficult time going, because it isn't maybe only one trip, but there's many trips going on at one school, and kids may be eligible to participate in some of the other trips, and we want to be sure that we make it financially possible for all kids. And so please make your teachers aware of that financial assistance. And Ryan, please remind, high school principals that that's a real important piece. So,
Barb, just real quick, that form is attached to the overnight trip piece, so
yes.
if they print it out, they get the form with it. They don't have a choice, so they see it.
Right, so they see it. But I know they have meetings, many of these people that go places have meetings with parents, and I think it would be very important if they did review this with parents. But again, I saw this letter to the parents saying, let's make a deal, and I didn't think that that's what we wanted. We'll pay for it, and then we'll make out a plan for you to pay us back. So I know we don't want that. Mr. Baumgart?
I'm not necessarily agreeing or disagreeing with you, but again, I come back to this, we've never established policies on this, and I think as a board, we have to begin thinking about how we want to handle this. And maybe there are situations where a plan with payback is the appropriate thing, because some people just assume they're going to get a scholarship, or maybe they could be working in a school or something like that. So I don't think we should just unilaterally say that that's not permitted, but maybe we have to, again, bring this back and determine as a board what is the appropriate way to handle it. And, because I don't know that I necessarily agree with you or disagree with you on that particular issue. Might be that somebody has to make a judgment decision as to whether this should be a loan or should be, or a gift.
Well, really, if you look at the form, it asks a lot of questions to see if a student is eligible.
Well, that's fine. I have no problem with that.
And these companies that approach us, to participate in their travel, they too say, well, we offer scholarships and you have to apply for it. So I don't know that we've ever said it's, a free-for-all, because that was never our intent. but,
Well, anyway, it's something that has to be.
yeah, I agree, I agree.
Resolved different. Just a couple other comments regarding the whole packet. I appreciate the fact that, and there's probably people out there wondering how many days these kids are going to be missing from school, and the vast majority of these, there is no days of school lost, or maybe a half a day. So, in fact, there's only one that's very high, and that's a competitive one, and that's 4 days. So I appreciate the fact that the kids will not be missing out on a lot of school in most of these cases. I do notice that there's a couple at the bottom that were not even submitted because of failure to get their stuff in on time. Appreciate that. And the only other thing I'd say as I begin reading these, sometimes I have to be disappointed in our staff because they don't proofread what they're doing. There's spelling errors and things like that in there, and that's just not professional to submit something to ask approval of it and have spelling errors and things like that in it. And I really would ask our teachers to be a little bit more attentive to what they're submitting. I'm not going to not vote for anything just because of that, but I think it's not a real good message to send to the board that I don't know how to spell some very basic, simple words. So.
Ryan, there's just one other thing that I think we need to consider. I don't know if it's a policy issue, you know, Todd is here, I don't know. But we ask 4 questions when it says purpose of trip, and it says, must support district priorities, goals in one or more areas. Please check those that apply. All students attending School District of Waukesha schools for at least 1 year will read at or above the grade level by the end of 3rd grade. Well, you know, we don't really know that, do we? I mean, that they have to check that box. And how would, you know, somebody know that? Then the next question, the next thing they say for purpose of trip is, all students will reach 90% proficiency in literacy and numeracy as measured by district and state assessments. Really? That's going to be a consideration for kids to go? So I don't know that should be there. Then
I think that was a new thing we tried to add in this year. I think there might be a little interpretation issue in what we did. We
Yeah,
tried to say that
right.
these trips should be tied to course goals or school goals,
right.
not a SMART goal, and I'll try and clarify that. Those are some
Right.
very specific SMART and measurable goals
right,
rather than
right.
maybe a bigger piece
And
about.
the third
some-
one, average composite ACT score will be 25.0. Wow.
No, these have been there since the high school principals,
I
back when
know it.
Melissa Thompson was here.
But I
They
just
sat
don't know.
down and redid this because there was a lot of concern why people were even going on field trips. So they tried to put down some verbiage to say they're going to benefit our students academically. That's what came about, that's what the form was approved as, and we can modify it.
But we are not saying to a student you can't go if you don't have a 25.
State one of these.
Yeah, you just have to have one, right?
Please check those that apply.
In one or more areas, but we're not
Yeah.
saying that.
And this particular person Xed everyone,
Well, that, yeah, I can understand that maybe doesn't make sense, but.
you know? And that's
That
not,
may be the discussion you need to have.
you know, and I think we need
That's
to.
the goals they're working towards.
Yeah, and I think we need to discuss this because we certainly don't want something in there that we don't comply with.
Sure.
Okay.
I completely agree. I will take a close look at that. This seems
Yeah.
to be an easy fix, and again,
I think
maybe
it
a
is
little
too.
translation issue between what the intent
Right,
is and what.
Right,
says
but I
there.
mean, when somebody's got it all Xed, I don't know how they would determine that, so. Mr. Baumgart.
The subject at hand is the approval of these trips, and I would like to move for the approval.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second, all right, it's been moved and seconded that we accept all of the applications for the 2014-2015 overnight trip requests. Any further comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor, reply by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, 5-0.
And thank you again, Mary Jo.
Yeah.
Oh,
Amazing.
well, it was work for us too to read through all those. I mean,
Yeah. It's a good thing there was a Packer by.
right. That's right. Okay, moving forward and onward and upward, our presentation items. Ryan, would you take us into that, please?
Last month, we got a chance to look at our quarterly report in action as we got a chance to hear from 3 high school principals about their overall school goals for the year, as well as some of their focus points instructionally. In an attempt to continue to move on that, in that conversation tonight, we're going to talk about the next stage of those goals, those quarterly reports. We have our middle school team of principals here tonight, and they're going to, instead of talking about their goal, their school goals and their instructional practices, they're actually going to start with their instructional practice and how they bring those alive with professional development and coaching in their school. So they're going to hit on one area that was the same as the high school, but another additional area. I'm going to be, we have a slideshow that we're going to be showing that we'll be going through. I'm going to be strict on time because I know it's, we've got a lot on the agenda tonight. So I did ask them to put some information together for us, but each school is going to kind of share a glimpse of what their work is. What I think we're going to want to continue to highlight, just like last month, is the great collaboration that's happening across our middle school level, across the district. You'll see some similarities across buildings. At the same time, you're also going to see unique places where their school or their data has them focusing on other particular things. So I think if our team wants to come up to the microphones, Mary Jo has this slide. I'll do a quick intro. Here we go. We've seen this before. This is our basic overview of our quarterly reports. This is a chance we get to visit every school 4 times a year and get a chance to see some major pieces. Not to be read in detail here tonight because the font isn't great for presenting, but we're going to be focusing on yeah. No, it's not. But as we go to the next slide, it'll show a close-up of the area that we're going to talk about first. So, oops, right there. A little bit closer look. We're going to be looking at what we call, or talking about, as high leverage practice. And we were looking at these meetings as the school articulated foundational instructional practice guarantees. And we use the word guarantee as you're walking through the classroom, as you're walking through the building, as you're walking from grade level to grade level. What are some things that we want to ensure that are guaranteed that every student has a chance to do? So I will let you quickly introduce yourself when your slide shows up, and then we'll have you go through that. So our first slide gets into Butler.
Hi, my name is Jason Sadowski. I'm the principal at Butler Middle School, and our primary focus obviously is with literacy, but with the strategies that, every strategies that we implement has a focus of questioning and discussions. So whatever strategy we have, our focus is taking the question discussion process around that and take it to a higher level of depth of knowledge. So many times our walkthrough data has showed that our depth of knowledge has been the past 2 years at the 1 and 2 level, and our goal is to be at the 3 and 4. So that is a key component to the practices that we are implementing this upcoming year.
My name is Mark Wagner. I'm the principal at Horning Middle School. And if you take a look at, there are similarities, as Ryan said, between all the middle schools here. One of the things, and this is district-wide, is making thinking visible throughout the district, and it's one of our new acronyms of MTV. One of the things that we're working on at Horning to make that happen are a few things. Our systematic implementation of GLAD strategies, and another acronym, Guided Language Acquisition Design Strategies, really designed around dual language and bilingual education, but they're good practices and strategies used for all students. It's a way of really making that thinking visible where students and teachers really get deep into those levels of knowledge that we're talking about and stressing about in the district. Couple of learner outcomes there that are mentioned in regards to those GLAD strategies. Organizing those thoughts, the teacher-student modeling how answer was arrived at, not merely what the correct answer was. So that gets into those deeper strategies of that levels of thinking. Yes?
Going back to Butler. There's a rubric that we gauge, and when we go into the walkthrough, like we do a walkthrough, so 3 to 5 minutes that we're in a class, our academic team. And what we do is we listen to the conversations that are had between student to student, teacher to student, And we kind of gauge that. There's some key terminology that we're looking for, especially when it's student to student. That's where we want to listen, for really, are they getting just the general concept of it, or are they really getting into a deeper understanding of it? There's, the big thing is, what is understanding? Understanding, some people think that understanding is this deep level, but really, understanding is a precursor, is a precursor to understanding is the first level, but really the true understanding is that deep level after it's the result of analyzing, synthesizing, organizing your thoughts, all those kind of things. Through discussion, through different level of questions that are asked of students, by students, all of the above. And it can be oral or it can be in written form.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Are we talking about showing your work here, or are we talking something different? Showing work, thinking, discussing, same things that Jason was mentioning. Right. We want to know how they arrived at that answer and make it visible to everybody else and explain. Yep.
I'm Rob Bennett, the principal at Les Paul Middle School Central Campus. In like the two gentlemen before me, very much same things, looking at annotating text, analysis and interpretation of informational text, a big cross-curricular push. What's taught in 8th grade language arts, those graphic organizers and tools and skills there are also reinforced then in social studies, science, how to think like a mathematician, think like a scientist. All of the emphasis too placed on vocabulary acquisition, building those vocabulary bank, so to speak, for kids. Teaching students to provide textual support, again, the making thinking visible. Is that poetry? Is that even an artistic piece, a piece of music that's created? So many different venues to do that. And it'll allow our learners to make connections to their prior knowledge, generate questions, make inferences, determine importance. And the big thing really is monitoring their own understanding. If we can take it to that next level for the student to understand what do they need next, what do I need my teacher to teach, how do I need to take it even further? So to adjust their strategies for their true understanding.
Good evening, board. My name is James Murray, principal at the Waukesha STEM Academy. Mine's a little artistic here. I took this out of my office, actually. This is our, I just say flat out, point blank, this is the way we do business at STEM. So we took this from our SIP, our Making Think Invisible, MTV, as everybody else said. But application is really the tried and true everyday application. How are kids applying it? What is the evidence? What are they learning? How are they learning it? How are they demonstrating it? Secondly, proficiency-based pathways, so reporting and evidence. And then number 3, 100% consistent message of STEM. So if you could talk to any student in our school, can they give you the same message about why they're at STEM, what STEM experiences look like? Can the parents, can the teachers, can, our governance board, can they tell you what STEM is all about? From there, we took the big 5 HLPs, the high leverage practices, and really rolled those into staff development, but really tying them through a learner focus instead of a teacher focus. So again, everything centers around the students. So evidence is student thinking again. How do you know that the students are learning it? How are they demonstrating it? Pat, to your question before, really thinking about that metacognitive piece. Not just thinking about it, but how are they displaying it through thinking logs, through math journals, through writing journals, through using different apps on the iPad that they're actually sharing out with staff, with digital portfolios, with parents, with any kind of days that we have where we have community members come through, or partnerships, things like that. So all those 5 are really our big 5 that we're rolling through with staff to keep it consistent, but keep beating the same drum and not just have it be a one-time deal, but something that we're going through with staff every month. Not dropping all 5 on staff every time we have PD, it's too much. And you can't do anything that's that wide well enough, and so I think doing it in small chunks and then coming back to it in a cyclical approach is really a lot more efficient, we found this year. Constantly reflecting on learning though, but student-centered rather than teacher and teaching-centered, I think has really flipped our paradigm, so that's where we're at this year.
As a quick overview, You heard with confidence our 4 middle schools talking about some practice, and now with defining that, and we asked for defining some high leverage practice. Anytime we say that we want to see something in the classroom, in the school, that puts great responsibility on our system to ensure that we are providing an amazing amount of support and growth opportunities for the teachers to be understanding what it is that which practices are getting results, where is it, can I learn these practices, how do I have time and place to practice these. So as we talked about defining high leverage practice, somewhat easy task compared to actually growing that practice and building capacity in our system. So the third focus point on our rubric this year is really asking our teams to identify and be able to articulate what their professional development model is, which is way more extensive than just a Thursday or Friday off for kids and teachers coming in. What does that relationship look like to grow the practice on a daily basis and to give people time for that practice to emerge? At the same time, we tie in leadership in this too as well, which is who is leading this work? How do we develop the leaders for all of these practices that we want to see? Because we see teachers at different career stages throughout our buildings, those that have mastered practice and are willing to mentor and share and become model classrooms, as well as emerging teachers who have just hired on, and so you see different stages as well. So we've challenged them to do 2 things, and really we said it, for as bright and shiny as the practice is that we'll talk about, or for as long as it's been in our system, it doesn't matter. The point is, where do we have a daily series of support systems that are there for people, and that is from people in their building to professional development offerings that could be offered at accessible points in their career or in the year or in the week, as well as just developing a network of learning that just links people into a network or get the resources they need. So you'll hear, again, in a similar format, the 4 schools describe their learning networks and how they're growing capacity in their schools, because we know it doesn't do any good to say what we want to do. Our focus is on ensuring and supporting these practices so they end up in every classroom. So into the next stage, I think we're back in order though with Butler.
So basically, we've kind of all mentioned that making thinking visible as our theme. One of the clarity is it's not what we're doing, it's more or less a thing, it's kind of the umbrella of what the whole process is. Over at Butler, we do have 2 major teaching groups, teacher leadership groups. One is our school improvement team, and the other one is our Lit Squad. Our Lit Squad is basically what disseminates a lot of our literacy strategies and provides a PD for our staff. There is not one coach or administrator on it; it's 100% teacher-driven. And they have. We also, through our professional development, we really truly believe professional development happens on a daily basis. It's not just that one-time event on October 30th and 31st. We have, during our PLCs, we have this happen. Our PLCs meet at least twice a week. So every teacher's meeting roughly at least twice a week with a group of teachers that have developed their skills. And additionally, we meet as a whole staff, or we break out into groups as a staff once a week during our opportunities to learn, which is our OTL. We don't have faculty meetings anymore. This has replaced our faculty meeting. When we need to disseminate information, that's usually sent in an email or some other method. So we've used that time as opportunities to learn for our staff. And the whole piece, kind of like Ryan mentioned, is differentiating that for the staff. We have some staff that are, moving forward, and we're going to provide them a different type of PD than we are the staff that might not get it at this moment. And we also give them a lot of options. So at any specific OTL or RPD, we may have 4 different things going at one time, and staff will have options to go to, or sometimes it'd be directed by administrators, say, hey, you know what, you really need to work on this. I will say for the most part, 99% of our staff, they make the good choices of going to where they believe they need to go to. In addition to that, we have 2 book studies going. We're going to be starting in the next couple weeks. The Comprehensive and Collaboration by Harvey and Daniels, and then the Making Thinking Visible by Richard Church and Morrison. And so we have, out of a little over 70 staff members, we have 55 that are doing this book study. One of the 2 book studies, or interested, I should say, are doing the 2 book studies. Yes.
What happens to the 1% that doesn't go where they're supposed to?
Those are the ones that we direct to go to the, where they're supposed to go.
Very good, Jason.
No, I think that sounds great, you know, and I think that a lot of times we talk about personalized learning for the students, but I think that it's just as important for the teachers to be backbone learners, to get that personalized learning, teach their experience.
And to be honest with you, this is Plan 2 as a part of modeling for the teachers. You know, we're here to demonstrate that, so it's a model part for the teachers, but also give them what they need. Not all teachers need the same thing at the same time.
Can I just ask, because you know the specifics and I don't see them up here, I mean, this is all good stuff, but it's very general. So the professional development is based on your CWT data from last year, and apparently data to come from this year, I'm assuming, is what you mean?
We already, this is based so CWT is classroom walkthroughs.
Right.
So last year, this was based on a whole year of classroom walkthroughs. We had about
Right.
400 classroom walkthroughs. This year, we already have 240 classroom walkthroughs that we've been so we've been in the classroom that much, collecting data on what we need to grow on. This was shared with staff, and actually they came up with, well, based on this data, we went to PLCs, and based on this data, like, holy cow, we didn't realize this is where we're at. This is, you know, we need to focus on this, on these kind of pieces. So they informed us what we need.
And maybe people have seen it, maybe you've all seen it, I haven't. So when you say data from walkthroughs, I'm just so curious as to specifically what you've observed, pro and con, in walkthroughs. I mean, to me, it's all kind of,
Yeah.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
And that's stuff I can share, but just to get a synopsis of what it would look like
Well,
is.
and I know you had to be vague here, but.
But, you know, you asked about, depth of knowledge. That is, there's a written component and there's an oral component that we will rate on the depth of knowledge. So the written component, we go through and we say, okay, the students are, you know, basically answering a question with, one-word answers. Or it's, you know, one-word type of questions. Okay, that's usually like a level 1 type of discussion or question happening. So we'd mark that on the classroom walkthrough. We'd write up to give staff feedback exactly what's happening in class as a write-up, grade the depth of knowledge both for writing and reading, and send that to staff. So the staff will get that as an email, as a feedback, and then we also make that data collection. Last year in the fall, Butler was in the high 30s, where high 30% of the question discussion was at level 3 or higher. At that time, we used Bloom's. Now we're using depth. There is a pretty close correlation between the two. This year, we dropped down to low 20%. So this was a focus that that compares us, holy cow, what just happened? So we had, so the staff's like, well, we really need a little bit more practice on this and all that kind of stuff, so.
Okay, thanks.
Trying to get back.
Okay, some of the same things, obviously, that Jason's talking about goes across district-wide, and it also is a focus of us as well at Horning. You take a look at improving our teacher practice. You've heard about comprehensive literacy, disciplinary literacy. I spoke earlier about this GLAD model. Part of our data from last year that was gathered was a walkthrough by district coordinators on how we were making thinking visible. And half of our building's 2 floors, half of our building, the second floor, was doing a lot more of that than our first floor, because our second floor has a lot of the readers, writers workshop. They were showing all of that. That was just part of how that process took place. So that was our focus for this year. How do we really get those teachers and kids to start making this visible? And so our focus, and to maintain our focus, was this GLAD strategy. Continuous improvement is the mindset. Implementing and assess their practices. I asked our staff to, when we talked about these strategies, to take a look at and really reflect on their own teaching strategies that they've used for many years, and whether or not that they were really useful, or they were just doing those strategies because they liked them. You know, was it really beneficial? Oftentimes, you know, I hear staff say, well, I do this, now I have to do more of this and more of this, and it just continues to grow, when in essence what they really need to do is reflect and kind of weed the garden, so to speak, and replace some of the things that maybe they were doing that weren't that beneficial. So the emphasis really is on our main goal is to do these strategies, and what are the results of them, looking at all content areas and guiding, you know, having those strategies done in all content areas. The walkthrough tool Jason mentioned, again, we use that as our data collector. We look at those levels of 3 and 4s where they're really deeply thinking about what they're doing and coming up with the answers. Looking at the peer sharing and instructional successes, and then the co-teaching and co-planning. We have about 41% of our staff that has 2 teachers in a room actually doing the co-teaching and the co-planning. And that, what that means is it's not one teacher teaches and the other one sits and then they switch places, is that they're actually sitting down together, planning together, and then when it's time to instruct the kids, they're actually instructing at the same time and doing some different things. So that is also part of how we grow this whole thing with improving and you know, moving through the literacy practices that we have. So I keep mentioning this GLAD thing, so if you have questions about that, I can go into that deeper and hopefully explain it a little bit more. So that's where we're at.
So just a quick question.
Yes.
You made the comment that the teachers are tending their own garden.
Yes.
How's that working for you? I mean, I think that that's great, because I think that that kind of initiative is very important for a teacher to be able to realize what's working, what's not working in the class. I mean, those are the kind of teachers, obviously, that we want in the classroom that can change course on their own, and, you know, don't necessarily need somebody to say, hey, you know what, you're doing it wrong. We want some, you know, some teachers that can self-realize what they're doing in the classroom. How's that working for you? Is it working good, or is it?
Well, it's with anything. It's with anything. You know, there are some that jump on board right away and say, let's go. Yeah, this is a great idea. There are some that, you know, are a little bit more hesitant. It'll take a little bit more time, and there are some that, you know, are pretty strong in their belief what they're doing for the last 25 years is the way to go, without really reflecting on that. So some you just let go, some you nudge a little bit, and some you have to push. Okay. And in the end, it's more about the reflecting and seeing that, you know, try some of these things because they're proven, you know, they're research-based, and they work. So, and, you know, one of the things that we've done with this strategy, we had our PD on Thursday, and we introduced these GLAD strategies, and teachers had a chance to pick some of the different strategies to learn, and now they go back and they introduce these strategies into their practice. And already this week, starting on Monday, teachers are starting to do those things as we walk through.
Okay. So you're seeing an improvement?
Yes.
We're becoming more nimble in our educational practices where we can change.
It doesn't
course.
happen overnight, but
No,
we'd like
right.
to
But
think,
you-
absolutely, that's the process.
Some of this taking root.
Yes.
Okay.
I think, let me add one piece to that too. On our professional development day we had this past Thursday, I'm Kirk Wuzencraft, assistant principal at Horning, by the way. We had, you're talking about how it's going with our teachers, we had 4 of our teachers in our building that led a big piece of our professional development in the morning, one being Chris Knutson, who's right here, one of our teachers at Horning, to go along with 3 of our other teachers. I think that was a big, successful morning for us in terms of, you know, our staff seeing 4 of our current staff members teaching and leading. That gets people on board quite a bit. So it was a really successful morning. And then, as Mark said, it's getting people to want to try those strategies and implement some of those things. So we saw a lot of success with that this past Thursday. So hopefully we can grow from there.
I love your strategy of co-teaching and co-planning. I think there's so much power in 2 heads are better than 1. And, you know, they learn from each other, and kids learn from teachers who present in different ways. And
Absolutely.
I just think it's very powerful, so I like that.
The last comment I wanted to make, and Ryan mentioned this before about building capacity, and I think that's really a key to all of this as well, is because when you can build capacity within your staff, that in itself creates the energy for them to plan their lessons and to carry that out in the classroom in front of the students and working with the students. So, and we've started to see that as we continue to grow these other strategies.
To continue on, as Mark says, build capacity, that's the top bullet. To build the capacity of our staff to capitalize on the talent and the leadership that we already have within our building, tapping into those teachers who are leaders already, or even those new teachers who don't quite know they're leaders, and getting them into that leadership role, and to develop the growth mindset approach. Not only, we do it for our students, that your intelligence just isn't set, you can always continue to grow and to learn, but also for our staff. You're not just a great math teacher when it's only algebra, but you're a great math teacher in life and concepts that way. And what has resulted in is our comprehensive literacy model. Our teachers are the ones leading our PD sessions. Like Jason, we have flexible faculty meetings on Mondays. So instead of a sit and get full staff meeting, there are multiple options. If it's technology, if it's thinking logs, if it's annotating text, whatever the case may be, and putting those out weekly. And those changing month to month based on staff need through surveys. What is the next thing you need to grow? Again, the classroom walkthrough tool is consistent amongst all of us that have provided us some great data. But I think one of the biggest and most powerful things, and I think Mr. McCaffrey, you spoke to it, the reflective piece. We've had teachers go in, and their task in last month was to go in and to observe peers, their fellow teachers, not to look at the teacher and say, you did a great job, but to think of themselves with a set of questions that they had to reflect upon. And then on PD on Thursday, they had to then share out in an interviewee session with groups of 4 what they learned about themselves and what they're going to implement in the upcoming months. That was pretty powerful. So we always ask kids to do it, and everything we've done in our PD sessions are things we're asking our adult learners to do that we're asking our students to do. And the power of them seeing that connection. The bottom slide is, bottom's improving student achievement and learning. We're improving our teacher achievement and our teacher learning. So that's where we are with that.
So how are you identifying the teachers with the talent to lead the staff? Are you catching that in walkthroughs, or?
Some of those are walkthroughs. Some of those are just those innate senses you get. The students who talk about things that teachers do and practices they do in their classroom. If it's working really well for a 12, 13-year-old, it's probably going to work really well for the adult as well. So the kids have given input on who we've tapped into for those leadership pieces. Technology, who are those teachers who are above and beyond on the edge of the newest and greatest things, and those are the people then leading our staff through those things. So really trying to use the whole building in its entirety to be able to tap into those teachers, into those strengths. And some of those teachers don't know they have those strengths until you ask them to do it.
Right.
Our PD this Thursday was led by an 18-year veteran connected with a 3-year veteran. And to see those different voices was pretty powerful.
No, I think that's great to have all those different perspectives, coming together.
Just to kind of piggyback on what Rob said, in our building, and Kirk mentioned the 4 teachers that put on the PD on Thursday, they were pretty nervous, right, Chris? Pretty nervous about getting up in front of their peers and teaching them something, because they also know that they're sitting, out in front of them are 25-year veterans or 3-year, experienced teachers. There's a variety there, and that took something for them to get up there and believe in what they're doing and show the excitement, because the strength of what they're teaching this other staff members, it's coming from their peers. It's not coming from me. It's not coming from another administrator. It's coming from their own, and that in itself grows strength. So.
No, I agree.
I was just wondering if you had, you can't teach what you don't know. And so if you see some of those kids that I think Mr. Murray had talked about it once, where those kids were so into coding, and just have you guys heard Mr. Murray's story about coding? Can you just share that really quick? It was just, and then I'll get back to my question.
I wrote a book about coding last year. No, we offered a coding class last year for the first time ever, because we had kids that were gamers.
What kind of coding? HTML,
That was the initial thought, and so we started to offer a project-based learning opportunity connected to math for coding through like Scratch and Hopscotch and stuff like that, just real basic. And what we ended up doing was offering it to all students, and out of 330, 110 jumped in voluntarily. And so our first reaction of our teacher was, "Oh my goodness, I'm dead in the water. I don't know how to." So we had to obviously support him a little bit better. And by the third day, the students had surpassed the curriculum he had put together. By the third week, there was a student proposing to put an app on the App Store. And so just things like that, I think, are amazing. You give students the boundaries, and they'll only work within those. If you take them away, they'll work beyond them. And so I think that's what we're doing with our staff right now, is really taking those boundaries away, letting them team teach and work together and have varied levels of collaboration, which are moving us forward, and obviously our students in turn. So that's the goal.
So-
Beautiful segue. Thank you, gentlemen. So
I just wanted to ask, so as you're seeing leaders within your leaders as teachers and asking them to teach, have you ever just seen those kids that are 10 steps ahead and just say, hey, would you like to come in and teach the teachers how, let's say, how you do coding, and kind of put them in the spotlight and have them teach?
One of the things we actually use students for in the rollouts, the iPad rollouts, I think we had junior vanguard groups at all of our buildings, that the kids then became the leaders of rollout. We were the people at the table checking off the important things, the financial requirements and all of those, but the kids were the ones walking through the setup. Those were the kids who were teaching the tutorials and how to get the App Store running. So we've tapped into kids that way to do that. We've also implemented thinking logs in our buildings. Ours at Les Paul are on the iPad. So they're thinking logs that keep their vocabulary, the genre of writing and reading, graphic organizers are all put in, and it's a building-wide initiative that we're doing. And it was something very new for the teachers. Well, the kids found different ways to do it through iBook Creator that was a little bit simpler and a little more efficient for them. So now it's electronic. So it's all on their iPad, and they've changed. We want different colors to pages, so the teachers have changed the way they've organized their thinking log to match the students' needs for theirs. So.
Nice. Thank you.
So our approach is very similar to the rest of the gentlemen. Personalized, I would say most similar to the OTLs at Butler, but I sort of stole that from Jay this year. But I think just we're sort of ditching staff meetings in the way of having staff being able to take opportunities to learn on their own time, whether it be a flip lesson, whether it be them doing research, whether it be a collaborative effort, a book study, something along those lines. We did tie in our site goals across the top three, and then going down the chart is the different ways that they're able to really focus in on those areas. But really being strategic, the image is just from last week, which again, to us was a continuation. It wasn't a single PD day and time. It wasn't static by any means. If there's something that we don't know how to do, we bring in people that we know can do it, such as our coaches from the district, our new district technology coordinators. Brian Yearling worked with us on this day on digital portfolios, just things that we really know we need to do with our students. And again, an example, Karen, to your question about letting the students lead. We just had a student help me figure out how to link out portfolios from Infinite Campus because the district couldn't figure it out. No shot at the district, but I had to pay him in Buffalo Wild Wings that day. But and again, it was a kid that was interested in coding and gaming, and he may have been a hacker in a different life, but he figured out how to link this out, and then we taught the parents how to link it out as well. And we made a video, and actually you got that video. And it was very impressive because I could not figure it out for the life of me. And he came up and said, oh, did you try this, that, and the other? And we used his mom's account to sort of make sure it worked, and it did. And so that was just an example of letting students sort of take charge too, no different than staff are doing that now. But the center of the chart in the bottom that's pointing towards STEM is student-centered. Everything is student-centered. I think, again, taking a learner-centered approach instead of a teaching-centered approach is really the way we go at it. Collaborative, connected processes, and then integrated cross-curricular. So when you look at our PD models, everything is connected to literacy this year, whether it be the literacy workshops over the summer, our effectiveness coach working with literacy even in science and math, which is a shocker because we're not literacy teachers, but all of a sudden we're teaching literacy. You have to write and read like a scientist. You have to write and read like a mathematician. You don't just do math. You don't just do science. So I think really crossing those boundaries is something we've broken wide open. So to me, I don't even look at it as PD anymore. It's just, it is the way it is. It's the way we do business. It's not a set day, it's not a set time. It's just a continuation and a continuum.
Can I just ask, relevant to that, and of course I have a perspective that is maybe a little different, but when you're talking about crossing boundaries, I think it's great if students are working with code and using, programs and so forth to do that. I mean, that's super. But I guess part of my prejudice, and everybody I'm sure knows that, but is if students are working with code, I think so often students today are just like, I'm here, this is the here and now, and I'm doing this and this is great, which is true. But wouldn't they benefit from knowing a little bit of the history of coding?
Mm-hmm.
Because, the most sophisticated code ever developed was by the Germans in World War II. And all they'd have to do is spend a day looking at the Enigma machine and then how Turing and the Bletchley Park people cracked that code, which is a phenomenal story. And it's also Turing, who was the British guy who led the cracking of the code, was also one of the first developers of the computer, because that's how he finally got the code cracked that they thought was, it was like the chances of cracking that German code were a million or something. It was just incredible.
Yeah.
But he did it, and I just think they'd be fascinated by that story because it goes to the history of coding and not just here we are today and we're developing a code, which is great. It's incredible skills. But, the fact that, 70 years, 80 years ago.
I'll do you one better. We had a kid that was in our coding class who was well beyond where I'll ever be.
Mm-hmm.
Coding to him was the beginning, so he's a ham radio kid.
Yeah.
And so I have a friend who's in ham radio, so his project-based learning opportunity was a student proposal tied to learning objectives, tied to literacy, tied to math, tied to humanities, everything else.
Sure.
He had to conduct this entire project, but his basis was the research behind ham radio, the origins, why it was used, why it's used now, where it's going, why it may or may not become extinct, and why coding is going to replace it. So I agree completely with you. I mean,
we just context.
Right. The context is key. The content to me
Yeah.
is surface level.
Yeah, thank you.
And so I
That's
think they
great.
get that, so.
Okay, thanks
Yeah.
very much.
Definitely.
That's great.
That's not necessarily my slide. That would be if there are additional questions. That's how I think some days. So just like, what was that? But just to give a quick overview, and I hope it's working, and I think in some of the stories we heard today it is. One of the giant shifts, one of the shifts we continue to try to make in professional development, as I remember a couple of years ago in this role, the week before any professional development date on the calendar, my phone would ring and I'd get the question, where am I going, when do I have to be there, and what are we doing? And then the day after that professional development, I'd get a question about, why did we do that? That isn't what I needed. We should be doing something else. And so I'm the last person to design these models, and I should be the last person to design what's on them. So we really have talked about a shift in ownership of professional development. Yes, we do have days on the calendar, and yes, there are other things that we need to happen. But the middle school team, the elementary team, every school, we've asked for, what is the ownership? How do we shift the ownership from being a district thing or something on your calendar that you're attending to something that you really own, and we're shifting it from having passive participants to really active participation. And you're seeing teachers design it based off of student data. You're seeing teachers design and share their practice based off of expertise. You're seeing risk-taking, people sharing what maybe they never shared with their colleagues before. And you're seeing ownership from our leaders in the middle level tonight as well. We're going to continue to push that emphasis of ownership of professional development. We're seeing great examples of teachers stepping forward and saying, here's what I'm learning, here's my goals for my student this year, here's the book that I'm reading, here's the work that I'm doing, and here's who I'm collaborating with. We're calling, acronyms, we're calling them PPGs, or personal professional development goals. And those come through the new state effectiveness model, where you're asking teachers for that. But it's great that we're trying to really shift the availability to flex their day, and you're seeing a lot of these models. So I'm excited to what they've described tonight and what we see happening, and I appreciate them coming in to share that and the great questions I think that unfolded.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Some wonderful things going on in your school, and I just want you to know how much we appreciate all that you're doing. I mean, how student learning has changed and how you've helped to make those changes to enhance student learning. So thank you and congratulations on a super job.
And Mr. Murray, feel free to call Ellen for having history lesson, right? You come in and teach the kids?
It's amazing, but, but I couldn't do a code now, but I can tell you the history of it.
They might teach you and you
They could
teach
teach
them.
me, absolutely.
130 South Walton.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay,
I believe there's a handshake deal going on in the audience that Bob Anthony wanted to jump ahead of the agenda over Jason Smith for the grading for learning, and I think they
Okay.
planned something, so we'll go with it since we're long into the agenda right now, but.
And I apologize for throwing a wrench into it, but actually, the things that they were talking about are the best update that we could give you as far as some of the literacy things that are going on in place. They spoke to it so well. They shared pieces of evidence. And really tonight was just an opportunity if there were any questions on some of the things we've been doing over since 5 months, 4 months. But the evidence that they shared tonight, the things that the detail that, Jason Sadowski talked about, the things that they're looking for, those are the pieces of evidence and the ideas and the things we want to make sure we support our teachers so they can support our kids. And so that was why I tried to ask Jason if it was okay to flip.
Sure.
Because they pretty much did a great job of presenting anything that I was going to share with you tonight. So if
Bob,
there,
are the walkthroughs that they do, is that part of teacher evaluation, or is it part of checking for student understanding, student learning? And what does a walkthrough comprised of?
Sure. It is more an opportunity about how we can improve the learning for students or the
Okay.
environment for students. It's not part of the evaluation process at all.
Okay.
Many times, some of the people that we work with say, if that is ever going to take place, then you take your coaching hat off and you let them know that this is no longer a coaching conversation. But at this point, the data that these guys are pulling with their coaches is strictly to help improve the practices that is going on.
So you're looking for student engagement and?
Yeah.
Okay.
What we're trying to move away, actually maybe move back to, is show and tell, in a sense, where we're able to tell you what we do, and what they were talking about, the MTV acronym, is we want to also see the evidence of what kids are doing,
Right.
and have that really be visible in lots of ways. Maybe it is on the iPad, maybe it's in the halls, so that we can have conversations. One of the biggest things we saw last year was we saw really good teaching taking place across the board in lots of spots, but not always the expectations were different from level to level. And we want to make sure that, hey, if we're doing a really good thing in second grade and we're doing it in fifth and eighth, that the depth is different, the expectations are different. And that's kind of where their feedback to their teachers on a regular basis, and then the PD that they run and the coaching that they do ties into that, and we'll see that. So the things they're sharing are the beginning pieces of evidence that we hope not only continue, but also eventually we can get to a spot where we start to see, numbers shifting and adjusting, and we can
Right.
have evidence of why that's taking place, so.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Baumgart?
Yeah. Bob, last year you and Ron were doing the e-sale visits, and I know that when you did those, you had at the end of it, you had kind of you digested it and tried to figure out what some steps were taking. Now, how are you following up on that?
Well, the biggest piece was you heard the gentleman prior to me talk about making thinking visible.
That's-
That was probably one of the biggest threads that we saw was,
So that was a direct result of the e-sales.
Yeah, that a small group in June at a conference of principals and district leadership kind of came to that, hey, this is something we could focus in on. That was then shared out with the coaches, then was then shared out with the other principals, then the other coaches and coordinators, and then all the way down to the teachers. So different sites are starting to use that, or have kind of modified it to fit their needs, to take a piece of it because it's a rather large document. So we're seeing it pop up in performance reports. People are sharing, hey, we're connecting to these components of the e-sale document, as well as some of the coaches and coordinators when they go out, they'll connect with principals and ask, is this something you want me to use, or just want me to give you feedback? And many of them are saying, we'll use this. We do have a couple of sites that are getting some intensive coaching, which would be Horning, Banting, Whittier, and Meadowbrook, just as our project sites. They're using the tool a little bit more on a regular basis, just to kind of internally monitor their work as they grow.
Yeah, that was I had a chance to visit along with a couple of those. It was really quite interesting.
Thank you. Ms. Franchek?
Thank you. Bob, I was just trying to look back in some emails. Are you still meeting? I think it's once a month you go to a different level and then a couple of those dates I thought got changed. When, can you send me a new updated version of when you're having those meetings to just,
Sure.
is it?
Yeah, the only one I think that got flipped was the 5th grade. We scheduled it on the same date as the 5th grade cross-country meet.
Okay,
But I can make sure that those get sent back out again.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
Bob?
Yes.
Yes.
Just real quick, thank you so much, because this chart, which I really like, has a lot more specifics in it than a lot of the times what we get. And I know you've heard me, and I'm sure you probably don't like it, but a lot of the times it seems to me we sit here and we get a lot of what to me are very vague and
Sure.
general things. And so I really appreciate this, because there's a lot of really concrete, a lot of concrete concepts and ideas and things in this chart that are just very, very strong. I like it a lot.
And Sarah and Ron and some of the other coordinators and Ryan, there's been a lot of focus for ILT, and there's a focus next Tuesday as well, just trying to help the building leaders understand those. And sometimes it's just as simple, whether you're in a kindergarten classroom or an AP classroom, just look at the types of questions you're asking on a regular basis and try to make sure you're shifting over in some of the different domains to make sure you are asking and expecting some students to be able to respond to some of those higher levels of questions. And sometimes it's as simple as just shifting a word can also, just change the whole conversation, so.
And just in case, you think I'm being too kind, I did write in here when it says investigate in the bottom corner, I did put investigate historical context. But that's just, thank you.
You and history and me know each other. That's right, that's right,
So,
that's right.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Ryan. Thanks, Bob, we appreciate that.
Our last one for the night?
I guess so.
All right. Our last one, grading for learning, a topic that everybody has some experience in or a thought on sometimes, or so we're going to try to share an update tonight. Jason Smith, who's been a part of this, we're going to try to share a balanced presentation. We continue to hear the conversations about what are sides, and there's probably no topic in discussion more so beyond iPads maybe than grading for learning over the last couple of years.
Right.
Knowing that we see the grading for learning conversation continuing on for another decade in some way, but yet at the same time making progress each year, we wanted to bring forward an update tonight. Want to share some successes as well as some questions, and I will take some time tonight as well to describe what we call our customized local solution approach to trying to really meet the needs of what teachers are seeing, what each building is seeing, and what students are seeing. So Jason's going to kick us off with a little bit of an update, and then we'll hope to get some good dialogue.
Jason and Ryan, just one thing. I hope you weave into your report tonight the why of grading for learning, because we've been persisting and persisting and persisting in it, and there's been lots of issues, so please weave that in.
And maybe, I'll even maybe start with that a little bit then, and before I turn it over, which is, one of the things that got lost in this conversation was almost the reason that we would do anything in the school district of Waukesha is to engage student and increase student achievement. And if we've lost sight of that and we start doing something because of somebody said, or because a book said this, or because of that, and so what we wanted to really talk about was when we were hearing storylines around, well, students aren't learning because of this, this, and this, or other pieces, those are some of the things that we really did. I use the analogy of stopping the station wagon for a little bit because there's getting to be too much noise. We're not turning around, but we're putting the brakes on, and we're going to try to make some sense of what the conversations are and what do we need to do to move forward more as a team or in a way that makes sense. But we definitely want to get in. We'll be getting into that tonight, and I think Jason's going to kick off formally, and then we hope to have some good discussion about it.
Absolutely. Thank you. I want to say thank you for the opportunity to present an update. Challenging work. The way I'm going to start off tonight is the first document in your packet. It's the horizontal document titled CNI Presentation. I apologize. I may have misspelled a word. I hope that doesn't cloud the rest of our presentation, Bill. I apologize. I caught that a little late in the game. We start off with a goal, and I want to talk a little bit about the process. Collaborative goals we feel are important across all of our departments, And with our teacher leader team, again, we have the train the trainer model. We have about 37 teachers in our buildings that are serving that teacher leader role. So between our teacher leaders and our planning team, we worked and are working to finalize the goal, and this is what it is in draft form. We're using the if-then statements this year to try to really refine our understanding and to try to really focus in on what we'd like to accomplish. And we also see the need to and the value in making connections for teachers. So the goal really ties what we think our work is with the Grading for Learning teacher leader team and my role as coordinator, along with educator effectiveness. So I won't read it all, but essentially if we're involved in purposeful planning and professional learning communities around Grading for Learning as teacher leaders, and then we provide that professional development for our teachers at our sites, then we would be able to grow our practice and we would see more teachers be proficient at best practices in grading and assessment. So there's a blank in that statement because we're going to collect some baseline data in the next few weeks, and we want to be able to see where we are now. And then when I come back in winter and provide an update, we'll take a look at what that data is and what our goal is in terms of growth. We need to see where we are first. So we hope the goal validates our work, and we hope the goal is something that we can measure. It's one thing to say we're providing support in PD, it's another thing to say, are we having any effect? And we want to make sure that we are, and if not, we want to refine what we're doing and get better at it. So we, no.
And I understand that, that's a good goal. But when you say you hope it's something that we can measure, that's disturbing to me. I mean, if it isn't something we can measure, then how can we know if it's helping?
That's a great point. Absolutely. So this is our first venture into trying to make a measurable goal around PD and support for grading. So our first venture into it is to try to use the Danielson framework. So I believe we'll be able to measure it. Having not done it before, I don't want to guarantee that we can.
That's a strong
Right.
word. I like believe
Yep.
better than hope.
Absolutely. So thank you. Yeah. So I think this next section, the two boxes next, will connect with Barb's request to get at the why. And I shared these with you because for two reasons. One, to frame the work as always, but also to make a clear connection between our conversations here and the same conversations we have in any professional development we do with teachers. So any session I've had the pleasure of running or leading, we always talk about philosophy and we talk about the definition. Because at the end of the day, we can't define it or talk about what we believe, or why we believe this is the right thing to do or what it really is, then I think we may really have some communication issues, and that might lead to some of the challenges down the road. So when I share the philosophy, and I would argue that that's really a belief statement, I would say that I share that with teachers and administrators in training, and I say, let's push back on that. If there's ever a time where we disagree with those statements or those components, then we'd want to respond to that. And so far, in all of those sessions I've run over the last 4 years, we haven't had any pushback on that. So it feels like we agree with those statements, and I think that helps us to really get at the why we do that. Ultimately, to lead to student achievement, but if we're drilling down to the grading and assessment piece, I think that really helps us to focus on the why. I want to also point out that the clear learning target piece, part of the work we did in the spring in preparing for our rollout of Infinite Campus was to revisit and revise learning targets at the secondary level, and we did that at about 90% of our courses and departments. So that work was done.
Wow.
And that criteria piece, we're in the process of continuing to develop high-quality common rubrics for teachers and students. I share the definition as well because I think it's important if somebody were to ask, well, what is grading for learning anyway? If we can come back to that definition, it's about high-quality standards and criteria that allow us to measure student growth according to those standards. I think it helps us to just keep things simple. And that's really the goal of all of this, is to make it simple so we can get to high-quality lessons and engaging instruction and support our teachers and students in the process. So, as I shared last year, we revisited and revised, and we kind of re-rolled out Grading for Learning last year. We did some new training. We built a teacher leader team, provided lots of PD opportunities. Some sites dug in deeply and did some incredible work at their locations with their teacher leader teams and administrators. And we really grew. I feel very good about the work that was done. However, we know that there's still challenges, and we know that there's still questions. And we know that when we looked last year to revisit and roll out, we had about 40% new staff since the original rollout, and now we're probably closer to 50. So knowing that, and knowing that we still train all of our new teachers and onboard them in the summer, we still have opportunities where people need more support in PD. So with that, and knowing those concerns exist, we had Todd presented a challenge to us at the start of the school year. And it was really to look deeply at our practices and to say, can we provide some flexibility for teachers, especially at the secondary level, to give them the tools they need to support student achievement. We believe in the principles and practices of grading for learning, but it might not be a one-size-fits-all model. And so that was a challenge, and Ryan and I saw that as the pause, as he referenced with the stopping of the station wagon, a pause to look at the practice and say, okay, we're 5 years in, we think we've achieved some great things, but obviously there's challenges, we want to continue to look at them. So it provided an opportunity. Ryan's going to talk about one of the approaches we took to that opportunity, but I want to also point out and direct your attention to the next document called the list. It's a one-page document. And one of the things we thought was important is if anyone, a community member, a teacher, a student, anyone challenged or had a question or concern or a negative thought about grading for learning, we thought it would be important to find out what the positives are. Because if we couldn't determine that there were many, many more positives and many good attributes that lead to student achievement and learning, then we wouldn't want to do it. And so what we did is we asked our coordinator team, we asked our parent advisory group, and we asked our teacher leaders to spend about 3 or 4 weeks and to go and collect some of this anecdotal data. And we did it without a survey. We wanted to do it in conversations. We wanted to have them just ask, what's working well? What do you like about this? Or if they proposed something that was a challenge, say, I absolutely understand, but let's talk about a success. Because we wanted to have both. We know those challenges exist, and we know those challenges will exist for a while, and we're not exclusive to those challenges. But we wanted to highlight the successes. So the ultimate purpose of this is to provide some talking points. So I hope that all of us, our coordinator team, our C&I department, anyone who's presented with challenges or discussion around grading for learning could use this document potentially as a way to say, absolutely, there are some challenges, but here are some absolute successes that the teachers spoke themselves, and the data supports that these are the collective successes. So I wanted to draw your attention to the first success, and I think far and above the others, it's the fact that we're able to have conversation about what proficiency looks like. What is it we really want students to know and be able to do? And students are talking about it, and teachers are talking about it, and administrators are talking about it. And I think that's one of the major, maybe if not the most important success we've had. And then I also want to look at the challenges, and I want to highlight two, the first one and the third one on the challenge list. Obviously, we want achievement to continue to rise, and we're at a downward trend, especially in ACT. We want to acknowledge that and consider our potential role in that and how we can continue to improve. And we also want to address the homework piece, because that is a concern, and it's been raised by lots of individuals, and I know shared in this room. And so we want to openly be able to discuss it and talk about some things we've done. So with that, I'd like to turn it back to Ryan to talk a little bit about the customized local solution. Sure. That goes along with the document in your packet that's titled Grading for Learning and Infinite Campus Updates for Training Sessions.
So I don't know where the term customized local solutions came from. I probably saw it on a UPS commercial or something else. Something somewhere, and that might come back to me. But the point was that the Grading for Learning books and resources and vision was really strong. Came from Ken O'Connor, came from a group that had pushed some of this vision understanding out as a great place to go. But the reality of traveling to that vision and fulfilling that vision in its entirety is a long process. And in that process, we really needed to take our time to look at what are the things that were going well, but really to take time now to acknowledge those that were working hard on this vision, but actually we're having some real, I just call it some misalignment in our system, just a misalignment of how we've operated for decades, a misalignment in what kids are doing or not doing. And so by taking time to do that, we put together a small process, and we called it a customized local solution. And really the message we sent out was, no matter where you are in the system, if you were having a problem, or if you saw a better way to reach students, or that you thought this was interfering with an ability to raise achievement, by all means, we didn't want that to be there anymore. So we're going to remove that barrier. What we did ask was if you had a local solution to something that might have been more of a district initiative at this time, we put together a small process, and it was talk with your grade level or your department or your team, whoever you work with. If you have an idea, just share that idea out at your building level with your principal or your grading coach. If they're supportive of it, it wasn't just something way too far-fetched or something like that. Let Jason or somebody at the district team know. Really, the reason is we wanted a paper trail so that our practices just weren't going to go again in all different directions. We said it'd be a message if we got 2 stacks of paper, or if we had a stack 2 feet high. And so we really try to promote that conversation. Even the rollout of that was interesting in terms of how much trust there was in our system and what kind of conversations we could have. But in the end, we really hit the road with those conversations, encourage people if they had ideas to share those and step forward with them. Now, Jason has a number of different places where local solutions are happening and adjustments were made, but it gave us great information about where some of the challenges were and what teachers were struggling with, where they needed to adjust. Homework was a big one. If students weren't developmentally appropriate to understand the importance of doing homework or weren't making those decisions and they were basing it off of, well, this doesn't count, and then play that out class after class, and now they're not doing homework, and now the achievement levels aren't going up. Was that our original intent? It definitely was not. So we wanted to catch those things. We caught some of those things, and now I think we're at a point where some of these new processes are trying. You know, the one question we are putting in is, no matter what we're trying, whether it's grading for learning or your customized local solution, the question is the same. Did the achievement go up in that area, and did it work? Maybe the custom solution worked, and we're going to celebrate that and bring that forward. Maybe it didn't work, and we're going to try something else. Or maybe we recognize in the same time, oh, I didn't realize that grading for learning had some flexibility, that we could just have done this and this was working. And we've got examples of all 3 of those. I think one of the math departments was fantastic. They were one of the first groups, the high school math department, to come in and talk about what they wanted to do for homework. But once they got around the table and shared some ideas of what a couple math teachers were doing to get students to really engage in their work, they ended up actually not changing anything at all, but just had better clarification for students and work and how they were using it. At the same time, some other departments weren't thinking about this, but when they heard the other departments sharing about new techniques they were trying, they did make some adjustments in how they were doing work. So I think we're at a good spot. I guess I've been using the analogy of, we're not stopping the train, or we're not turning around the car, we're not doing that, but we are pausing and really trying to take a look at where are we at, where are we low on fuel, is this good, where do we need to look beyond what we're doing now. So Jason has a little more detail about some of those conversations, and really what we hope to do is to have this carry us forward. It has caused a little confusion, as you can imagine, as a system that's always wanting consistency, school to school or level to level, and now we're looking for some customized solutions, and what we're doing our best to get ahead of those conversations as best we can, and really saying a 17-year-old on an AP track is different than a 13-year-old trying to form a homework habit, or a 16-year-old trying to get credit to pass a class is very different than a student trying to work at a proficiency class and move as fast as they can to demonstrate. So Jason has a little more follow-up on that.
Yeah, the first thing I'd like to say is I'd like to publicly compliment the teachers that took the risk of coming forward and asking, because there was some concern about that, and obviously we had moved to 100-0 weighted system, and to think of something different than that took a risk. But the power's been in these conversations. I've been part of all of them with our content coordinators, and they've been incredible. And having a group of teachers willing to talk about, okay, what is it we really want kids to do out of the class? So what do we want them to do to prepare for learning? And what kinds of instructional practices are we really digging into? To have those open and honest conversations, and some of them are challenging, but to get to that point, I think that was a benefit of this process that we probably didn't see at the beginning. So I think that's tremendous. And we hope that it leads to student achievement. We hope that it leads to providing those tools for teachers that they felt like maybe they didn't have, or maybe they didn't have the flexibility originally. We have 9 current customized local solutions that have been proposed. We've approved 3 of them, and we're in the process of working through some of the others. And one of the parameters Todd put on was that if we're going to count homework for a percentage of a student's grade, it needs to be rigorous and relevant.
For what percent?
If we were going to count it for any percent of a student's grade.
Okay.
We lived in the 90-10 world for a while, and we thought standards-based grading suggests that you move to the 100-0, and that's kind of provided the pause. But if we're going to count it, if we're going to say it counts 20% of your grade, it needs to be rigorous, it needs to be relevant, it needs to have substance. And Todd was very clear about that. So that's been a reflective question. And so some of the teachers are just taking some time to refine their understanding. What is it exactly we want to count? We want to do it, but we want to make sure we're on the same page. We want to send the same message as a department. We want to be clear. One of the principles of grading for learning is consistency and collaboration. The collaboration is there. We just want to make sure that within departments or course selects that there's still consistency. So we're still working through it. It's been powerful, a little slower than we thought, but that's okay. The power's in the conversation. So do you have any other questions about that process or those customized local solutions? Yeah.
And I don't mean to And obviously we'll pause in the car, because there are a lot of problems. And I think we all recognize that. I mean, I think some people articulated that very early on, that they could foreseen some of these problems, and they've certainly hung in there, and they're still there. You know, certainly, to me, what jumps out as I look at what I'm on this page now, anyway, that GPA is still being used. Well, yeah, I mean, are we surprised that that's the case? Because so many of our kids are going on to tech school or college, so of course GPA. And so many of our parents grew up with GPA and
Right.
kids. So, you know, is that a hurdle? Because if it is, then we're gonna have a lot of problems as far as college admission. And then this whole thing with homework, I just heard you say, well, if it isn't 100-0, then maybe it's 80-20. Is that something where we're gonna tell our teachers, by district fiat, you have to do 80-20?
No.
Okay, well,
No.
that's what I was sort of hearing. And I would assume as a teacher, you might object to that. If you can defend your system and be consistent, isn't that okay in our district?
So I'll back up and clarify. So we had, at the very initial part of the rollout, we had allowed teachers to, and I shouldn't say teachers, departments, course-like teams to navigate that weighting. We're gonna count homework 30% or 40%. And eventually we arrived at a system that the best practice was 90-10. That was our level of understanding at that time. That 90-10 resulted in what we called the homework dilemma last year. And our teacher leaders dug deeply into that at the sites. They researched, they took surveys, they dug deeply into what really was the issue, because it was deeper than just not completing it. There was more to it than that. So some incredible work was done and some incredible data was obtained and some great conversations and training with our teacher leaders. So there's two ways to go. You could leave it the same or you could change it. Well, the thought was, if 90-10 isn't providing the incentive for completion, then let's try what we had, I think, intended all along, was the system where homework is risk-free. That would be the 100-0 system. And obviously that resulted in some pushback. So the pushback has come from maybe some students aren't completing tasks as needed, and specifically in the preparation for learning. And as we drill down into these meetings, one of the major issues is I need students to prepare for the next day's class, whether it's reading or preparation for discussion or Socratic seminar. And so really refining our understanding of that and understanding that that's important for students to do. That's preparation for learning. So we talk 80-20 because that was just a number that was arrived at by a lot of the groups that provided these proposals. And in some discussions with Todd, we don't want to go beyond 20% because then we may slide back into that gray area where our grades don't accurately reflect student achievement as we had before. No, right now it's currently 100-0 for the district. That's our policy right now.
Whatever you come up with, every teacher's informed of that, is that what you're saying?
I thought Ryan said that some of those AP kids, they want to move faster and they can without the homework, but yet there's some sixth grade kids that are going to need to do the homework because they don't have that.
Yeah, so basically the spot that the district, again, it was an 80-20 model prior to, and then it grew, and that was a model that in the original adoption that we'd continue to have homework or things count less and less towards overall goal, because it doesn't necessarily match learning, but it's a good skill. But it was getting buried into points, and it was getting buried into, could kids get an A because they did homework even though they were demonstrating a B level of work. But it was the point game, it was other things. So that debate has been here and will be here forever, because now it's turned back into, okay, if we're at an 80-20 or a 90-10, and those were some of the district, that's what we had been operating off of, even a 90-10, or even a 100-0, which is homework shouldn't count towards any of the things, that was creating a lot of disruption in the system, a whole lot. So when it went back to, it's working in some places, it's working in many places to do that, but in some places it just was not, and that's where we said, let's pause, and instead of holding fast to these rules, let's ask what customized local solutions you would want. Why are you going for some of these changes? So math, which was working in the 90-10 and looking at, they actually are at 100-0, but they found new ways to ensure that students are doing the homework and how that prepares them to do their summative assessments. And it's sort of a precursor. Before I'm even going to let you take these assessments, you have to demonstrate that you've been preparing for these rather than just showing up. So they don't count it as points, but they're counting it as preparation to pass the class or to take the exam. So we're seeing these different models come in. But because it's been a numbers game for so long, and it's so difficult to come up with a rule, it's so difficult to even have a rule when you don't want one in the first place, but at the same time, if we don't have a good system. And I think many of your questions, even to start with the GPA, or pieces like that. This week, Wauwatosa School District we're doing a collaborative conversation with them, and they have a speaker coming in because they're going through this. Appleton School District is coming down next week to have a conversation here locally with what's happening, and really the conversations are always, here's the vision that we're trying to put in, but what are the pros and cons? We even had an author call us who's writing a book on secondary practices and found our best practices policy on the web in Waukesha and asked me, about all of our successes. And I said, well, I can share some, but the reality is this was not by any means a light switch, and we don't see that in the near future that it's just going to change because there's so much history and there's so much connection to. You see one of the challenges is our AP courses. Another challenge is college and GPA. Another question is that. So the reality is I think we're trying to hold to the vision that students are demonstrating mastery of content and standards without just this system of points, and it's 100 points. We move so far from that. Turn in this project, you're getting 50 points. We're so far away from that, and it's so amazing to watch. But at the same time, we don't want to get caught in just doing things that aren't making sense with achievement, and that's kind of where we've gotten with the pause.
Okay, so let me just real quick, if I hear what you're saying, I hope I do.
Just hope.
I hope. Then our teachers have, I think you're saying, the freedom to count homework at a certain percentage as long as they can justify that. And
Yeah,
explain it to students, parents, and administrators.
exactly. And we're also, and the only thing we added to that, and this is a piece of Todd, let's just make sure the homework's rigorous and has, that it's just not a point thing or filling in. And
But parents don't understand that if one teacher does it and another teacher doesn't, it's that consistency piece that continues to be a challenge.
exactly, and conversations this week and each week, whether it's, so that's why we've asked for those solutions to be by department or by grade level. We're trying to work with those conversations. And I think one of the messages that we're trying to provide consistently across the district is really when it comes down to it, it's really hard to make a set of rules that works for a system. It's also really hard to make a set of rules that say you can only demonstrate learning if you do this, because the next thing you know, a student will say, here's how I've demonstrated learning, or I needed this extra time, or I'm showing it this way. And really what's amazing when you boil it down to a school or a classroom, teachers are really providing flexible experiences for kids to demonstrate their learning and show how they've mastered this subject or this content. And it's hard to always just say, well, here's 3 tests, they're each worth 30%, and homework's worth 10%. If you do these, here's the points. Because now it's about students showing mastery and sometimes retaking something after they go back and learn. And so it is a gray area, and that's one of our major challenges, is communicating and showing consistency.
Mr. Baumgart has a question.
First when you're talking about the 90-10 or 80-20 or whatever it is, and it's an impact, are you talking about on the graded for learning number, or are you talking about on the ABCDF number? And that gets to the crux of most of our problems. We have failed, in my mind, to communicate that there are 2 different things working here. One is grading for learning. That's the process of learning. Eventually, you must have that summative score, which is the A, B, C, D, F.
Correct.
Because the colleges insist on it. We had a fellow at the governance board meeting at STEM. He says, there's just no question when it comes to the elements that we look at as admissions department. I got to look at 4,500 applications. I got 7 people looking at them. The first and only thing we look at for that first cut is the GPA.
Yes.
Plain and simple. Proficiency grading is meaningless to them because they're looking at the summative score.
That's right.
In my mind, we've done an inadequate job of defining the fact that these are 2 different systems that have to both be in place. The graded for learning is the process of learning, formative, and the GPA is the end of that cycle, and the level of mastery. And I hear this discussion this evening, and I can't even tell that you are differentiating between the 2. And that troubles me, and I think that's where we have messed up the parents. You know, they didn't realize we were, you know, they thought we're shifting from the one to the other, and I really think we were for a while, but we can't because the colleges won't sit still for it. They are not interested in that proficiency number. That's what the guy told us at that meeting. It's
true.
It's plain and
It's true.
simple. He says, I look at the GPA. Eventually, if we have to make a decision between other students, sure, we'll introduce other things like class rank, standardized testing, ACT scores, AP courses, maybe.
That's right.
Pass, fail, no.
And that's actually, a lot of us just got back from, the Institute at CISA 1 held their annual convening this week. And this is one of those big topics, when you look out at competency-based models, where you're out of the point system and into students demonstrating learning. One of the major topics by a couple of the keynote speakers were, again, and I asked Joe, I said, was it 450 or 850? So we're not sure, we're gonna go in the middle. But they referenced there's 450 universities now that are no longer looking at GPA at all, because they're starting to shift a little bit on those conversations, and they're looking at some of those other criteria. ACT, we had a breakout 2.5-hour meeting afterwards. Jody Landish and myself, and then a team from Wisconsin got a chance to meet with AC, and they're trying to become more than a number, but they still to show the other skills that students have. But at the same time, they know the reality is they're still a number, and the number means something. So when we go from having a student demonstrate proficiency in a subject area or to trying to convert it, that creates the whole, that's why this is mainly a high school conversation in terms of getting and grading for learning, because at elementary level, students are demonstrating at a middle school level, but all of a sudden we get to high school, and that's where most of the conversation takes place into how do
We're
we,
using it in
how do
elementary
we,
school, are we not?
yeah, and there's no, and really very little conversation in terms of needing to have a local solution at elementary or middle, because we don't go into the conversion game.
But parents do, Ryan.
Oh,
Parents will
yes.
take a 4 and make that an A.
Definitely. People have the decoder ring and
Yeah.
that. But yeah, exactly. I mean, so even though there's conversations of the shift, when I talk about this being a decade-long conversation, I think
It's gonna be longer.
2 decades.
Is it even
I'll
worth
give
it?
up.
What,
It's a continual wave, though. With your hip boots on and lots of hope, I think. So thank you for.
no problem.
But boy, I don't see the other end yet.
Yeah.
And exactly. And one other thing that we have heard, though, is we also don't hear anybody saying we want to go back to the other end.
Absolutely.
So if we're stuck in the middle of where we were with the points and this piece, and in between a vision that is pretty far out there, we're going to have to get really comfortable with having these local conversations, talking about what works for us. And I mean, we're collaborating with 2 other districts, Appleton, which is our size, and Wauwatosa, which is nice, just this week. And I know locally, Elmbrook is asking you to come in and share different examples.
I
and other.
thought they turned it down.
They're trying. I don't have, you can probably speak for that. But it's
right.
brewing, but it's a matter.
Oh, that's just Waukesha East, that's all that is.
One final comment on Bill's question about the muddiness of it. I think something we try to do in the training and with our teacher leaders is to differentiate between the grading for learning piece and the reporting piece. And I think that's what you were getting at. And a lot of our questions and issues come from the reporting piece, because ultimately we need to report, we want to know what the report is, but we want to spend most of our time in the learning part of it. So I think that's wise that you said that, and I just wanted to clarify that we're in tune with that and trying to continue to educate.
That's, you know, publicly, we had, public relations wise, that's something we gotta fix, because I believe when we started this, we made a mistake of getting people to think we were dumping one for the other.
That's
And
right.
we can't.
I would like to conclude with just showing one more document, and obviously the train the trainer model, our teacher leaders. I have a list of all of our teacher leaders. I wanted to give them credit for their work and connect you with those individuals at the sites. Document in your packet titled "The Grading G4L at a Glance: Everyday Practices for Everyone." I want to thank Todd for the challenge. In the spring, he said, "Can you get grading for learning down to a 1-page document?" And our teacher leader said, "No, it's too complex." Well, we did it. And it's 1 page on grading for learning, and it's 1 page on Infinite Campus, because there was a need to lay out some of those foundational pieces too. But to simplify what this is, if a new teacher came to our district or a veteran teacher and they said, I'm struggling with grading for learning, I need to understand it. And we said there's a list of things that define it, describe it, are practices we'd like to see. If you were doing some of these things consistently, not all every day, but if you were consistently operating in this world in your classroom, we could say confidently you're doing grading for learning. So we wanted to provide that and let you know this was a new resource we created. And it's also in response, Dr. Langelo, to something you pointed out last year. We had a document that was designed for teachers, and you gave some feedback that it was in teacher speak. We wanted this to be in speak that everyone could understand, so that was good feedback, and hopefully we improved on that. And I'll close with one final next step. Obviously, we have continued PD going on, but we're going to do in the next month, get together with some of the leadership crew and really look at some strategic planning. Like 3 years from now, what do we want? What conversation we want to be having about grading for learning and standards-based grading, and start to do some back mapping. We need to answer some of those tough questions, have the difficult conversations, but I think that will allow all of us, teachers, students, community, to really see the true benefits of the system. So thank you for the opportunity to share.
Question, Jason.
Yep.
I'm not so sure how widespread grading for learning is in Waukesha County. Can you help me understand? 'Cause it's my impression that it's not in most schools.
So I think if you think of it on a continuum, we're at a point where we're 5 years into a full rollout K-12. And you might look at Elmbrook, who's building in some practices. So they're trying to do some things around formative and summative assessment. They may not have adopted a whole model, but they're building in some of the principles. Swallow School in Heartland is adopting a target-based grading model, and they're trying to go all in similar to what we're doing. Muskego is starting down a path where they've done some work, and they're starting to look at some of those practices. I don't want to speak officially for them, but I know in some casual conversations, they were trying to not, instead of seeing it from a big rollout, what are some good aspects of it that we can put into play tomorrow with students that would be helpful? So I think that we clearly are the longevity leader and also probably
Right.
have the greatest expertise, but we are seeing it happening at other places, so.
Well, I just want you to know that, one of the things that drives some people crazy is that we used to allow retakes on summatives, and then we changed it this year, and that's kind of left some people in a quandary, because they said, kids didn't do well on summatives because they knew, what the heck, I can take it over and study some more, or maybe study for it, but now there's no chance. It's once, and whatever that grade is, that's final, right? And do you see that causing problems, or is this just a parent view?
I think that maybe one snapshot in one location. What we tried to do this past year was to message that it wasn't about the word retake, it was more about giving kids multiple opportunities to
Right.
demonstrate what they know and are able to do.
Right.
And the multiple opportunity could take the form of a lot of formative work ahead of time, and they could arrive at a summative assessment that could be the end of that learning experience. Or if a student or teacher hadn't provided a lot of formative work and feedback, that they might have to provide another assessment later because the student maybe only had one chance to demonstrate that particular skill.
So then, do formatives and homework count at all now, or are you're just starting to have them?
So systematically, globally, we're 100-0. And we're
Right.
seeing, as we referenced, with these customized local solutions, some teachers bringing forth that need to adjust the homework. And so for those groups that have gone through this process, then they're adjusting it up to 20%.
Okay, what about the formatives? Are they gonna count or not?
And so the formative work would be that 20% category.
Okay.
That might be in-class formative work. Could
Right.
be a formative quiz, it could be a short formative assessment,
Right.
or it could be the preparation for learning outside of class.
Right, okay.
And assuming you wrote number 11, which I'm going to assume, that's great. I think
Thanks.
100% for number 11.
Thank you.
I gotta get,
Well put.
Thank you.
gotta get it back out and see what you're doing.
11, oh, it's great.
Barbara?
Yes, I'm sorry, Ms. Ryanchek.
Okay, thank you. So in a couple weeks, how will you provide us with that increase when you are able to measure that?
Absolutely. And I'll provide the tool that the survey that we develop and use. I can provide you with that and also that baseline number, for sure. Yes.
Okay, forward, despite challenges, onward.
Thank you for the support.
We will succeed at this. We've got to. We've been at it too long to ditch it.
I don't hope, I know. How about that?
Great.
And when I said earlier that we don't screw up many things, I might have been thinking about this one.
Yeah. Which we needed to do, because, we implemented it and then we didn't do a lot with it. Now we're really doing something with it, so. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much, Jason. That was a great job of helping us understand. Okay, no further business before us this evening, so the date of our next CNI meeting will be Tuesday, December 2nd, and our meeting is adjourned. Karen?